Hey, George, do an intro.
Let's see. Special intro. Sport ball.
What's up, everyone? This is the SML podcast. I'm your host, Joe. We have a fun show lined up, bunch of reviews to take care of. Later on in the show, we're going to be chatting with Jeff Quindlen of Black Lodge Games, talking about his game Daath Origins, a little bit about the game, but more on the development and the fact that he's a single dude who made this whole thing himself and made his own collector's edition for it, like by himself. It's a really, really cool chat, so stick around for that. But we're going to kick things off with our good friend Norg. George, how are you doing today?
Has it ever occurred to you that he's only able to do those things because he's single?
I mean, he's just a one-man team doing it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So you aren't implying that like he's unattached or sexually frustrated. He's just a single-person team doing the thing.
Yeah.
You said single, and like I just assumed that you were totally talking about the fact that he can't get laid.
Well, see, when you assume, you make an ass out of you and me.
That's true. But now you've got to do a follow-up interview and find out if he gets laid.
I'll have to. I'm trying to think if that was brought up at all. Anyway, first game to talk about today is called Lego Worlds. Developed by TT Games, published by Warner Brothers Interactive. It released September 5th on the Nintendo Switch for $29.99, and I know we previously talked about on Xbox when it released on all the other platforms. Experience a galaxy of worlds made entirely from Lego bricks, explore gigantic landscapes, discover countless surprises, and create anything you can imagine by building with Lego bricks. George, what did you think of Lego Worlds on the Switch?
You know, the intro really kind of sums up the entire game at that point. Like, it's a Lego game. And if you've played a Lego game before, the kind of the crux of what you're doing here is building shit. Now, different from many of the other Lego games is obviously this is an open world-ish environment with some what's the word I'm looking for? Some parameters. You do get to build a lot of shit. And I have never played Dragon Quest Builders, as full disclosure, but it's kind of what I envisioned that playing Dragon Quest Builders would be like. You're playing in an environment that kind of looks like Minecraft, but it has the feel and environment of just running around Lego fields. And 12-year-old me is just happier than a kitten under a leaky cow playing this game. The sound effects are just glorious. The voiceover, I want to be that voiceover guy because he is just great. And every time he says Master Builder, I can't help but think he really wants to say something else. But then 12-year-old me realizes that 12-year-old me doesn't know what else that could possibly mean. So then I immediately get out of my dirty mind.
I don't know.
And
12,
I go back.
12 might be the right age to start.
Not if you're me. But we're not going to talk about that.
I was 24 the first.
I was a junior in high school when I discovered the bra section of the JCPenney's catalog. It all went downhill from there.
Oh, man.
Oh, boy. This is really getting off topic.
Just a little. So, yeah, Lego Worlds.
Lego Worlds. So, adventure mode is fun. The controls are a little janky. I had a difficult time jumping into Lego Worlds from having spent a ton of time recently diving back into Breath of the Wild. So, the control scheme in terms of camera view and jumping around and such, it's a little difficult to get into it, but you spend a little time and it starts to make sense after a while. I noticed periodically that there were what appeared to be some fascinating frame rate challenges, and those frame rate challenges didn't change between docked and handheld. Most of the time I played handheld, but when I started seeing some weird frame rate stuff, I thought I'd throw it into the dock just to see if it had something to do with power and whatever. And it was the same. So yeah, there's some weird frame rate stuff. I didn't find that impeded any of the fun of the game, though. The music was nice and the music was nice and immersive. The environments were lots of fun. It was easy to see where you needed to go when you needed to go. It was really cool searching around with that exploration tool and getting new patterns for things you could build and having to build things to solve the various adventure quests. And it's Legos, man. Like, if you didn't play with Legos and you don't have a sense of humor, this game isn't for you. But if you've got a flesh creature frame and you have at least a passing appreciation of humor, then you're going to really enjoy this. Let me disclaimer that by saying that I can see where adults may not necessarily enjoy this as much as like a 12-year-old or a teenager or whatever. But it's Legos, and if you played with Legos as a kid, you can't help but really enjoy diving into this realm and basically having free reign to build any conceivable thing you want. Now, having said that, in the free build mode, building stuff is a little tricky. It takes some getting used to, and I'd have to say that even with the time that I've already spent in it, I found that it was sometimes difficult to get the pieces that I wanted to go into the places that I wanted them to go. And that became frustrating after a while, especially if a piece was misplaced. I can't speak to the experience on PS4 or PC or Xbox or whichever of the other consoles and systems that it was available for, but I found that on Switch using Joy-Cons, it got a little tedious when trying to build stuff, but that did not stop me from being driven to just build random stuff because I was a kid who played with Legos and it was basically 12-year-old me's awesome thing. I would have loved to have a game just like this when I was a kid.
Well, now you do have a game like this and you're a kid at heart, so it counts.
Pretty much. Absolutely. Now, Lego Worlds also had a expansion that apparently released not too long ago for the other systems, but is available as downloadable content for the Switch as well, and that is Space Mode. Now,
yeah, I think that's what, like $4?
Yeah, it's either $4 or $5. I can't remember exactly where it is, but it's important in the overall scope of this particular game because if you were a kid in the 80s who played with Legos, the most popular things that you could get that were Lego related that weren't like the advanced Lego stuff, because that was like only for really smart kids and engineers and stuff. The space theme for Legos, I think, is the longest running theme and definitely the most popular. And I nearly flipped my shit when I saw the dude with the simple helmet and the planet on his chest with the little arrow scooping around it. I'm like, oh, that's my childhood. Running around on basically what I'm assuming is the moon or whatever. And then you can ride in spaceships that look unnervingly like the types of spaceships that I built when I was a kid. And launching rockets but the purple spiders, why? What? I don't get it. It's the moon and spiders. And if you live in Washington,
moon spiders, duh.
And they're purple, which I assume is because they're oxygen deprived. But if you live in Washington State, we are in the middle of spider mating season. You can't walk from your bedroom to your back door without interfering in the pub crawl that is spider mating season out here. They're everywhere, and there's nothing you can do to stop them. don't listen to anybody who says that you can put like peppermint oil or other essential oils on cotton balls and just layer them around your house, and the odor of those essential oils will keep the spiders. Bullshit! Spiders are relentless, and they don't give two fucks about your cotton balls filled with essential oils. Bullshit. So anyway, yeah, purple spiders are a bit of a sore subject for me. Aside from that, just having all the space things and seeing the space stations and the clear plastic pieces that were unnerving, kind of weirdly yellow, and God, it's so much fun, especially if you're a kid who played with Legos. I don't think I will be able to get enough of this. It's too many kinds of fun.
So I guess the big question is, for $30 and for an additional $4 or $5 for the DLC, what is your verdict on Lego Worlds?
My entirely biased verdict is buy it.
Sounds good. And you mentioned the frame rate issues. They already announced that they're aware of it. The game is just not completely optimized, and they're working on an update for it.
Sweet. Now, I can imagine that some people would get really frustrated with some of the controls and frame rate stuff, which is obviously going to be fixed. And I don't know. I spent a little bit of time looking up what people's opinions were of this game, and I saw a lot of really negative shit. And I did not experience any of that negative stuff when playing through this game. So, yeah, from this entirely biased perspective, it's an absolute buy it.
Sounds good. And then you're also here to talk about one more Switch game, RBI Baseball 17, developed and published by Major League Baseball Advanced Media, released September 5th as well on the Nintendo Switch for $29.99. RBI Baseball 2017 debuts on the Nintendo Switch with fast-paced, high-octane pick-up-and-play baseball action. Take control of your game with reactive pitching and batting for in-the-moment decisions. RBI 2017 is packed with 30 authentic ballparks, advanced stat tracking, season game sims, and roster updates throughout the season. Your breakout MLB season is here, and you better come ready to play. Before we get to you talking about it, I do want to address the game is $10 more on the Switch than on other platforms, and I'm just going to take a shot in the dark here because it's happened with a number of other games that it's because there's a retail version. And a lot of Switch games that have retail versions are seeing like $10 price increases over other platforms because of the cost of manufacturing the cartridges, which is kind of shitty, but you know, it's Nintendo, so I think we've all just grown accustomed to that. Is
that the nefarious Nintendo tax?
Probably. The thing is, if it's digital only, there's nothing, you know, there's no increase. It's only if there's a physical version. And the reason they can't sell the digital cheaper is because if they do, like, stores won't carry the game.
Yep.
So they're kind of stuck doing it. I think, what was it, Rhyme? I think they're like including a soundtrack with the physical version to kind of help make up for the added cost. But yeah, RBI Baseball on the Switch. What do you think?
Well, I liked how you had the description as saying that it's in the moment batting and such, because that moment is really short. Oh my Lord. Now, to be fair, I am 41 and my reflexes, they're not so good no more. And having said that, I'm not usually that bad at baseball games, and I spent a lot of time with this baseball game because I assumed there would be a learning curve, and there's a little bit of ego and pride because I don't want to come back saying there's just no way that I could accomplish anything in this game because I'm just too slow. I've gotten too old and my satchel's too gray and I can't possibly play this game. No, none of that. So I spent a lot of time playing this game, and I didn't really get any better at batting. It's one of the problems that I found up at bat. I'll get into pitching in a minute, but one of the problems that I found up at bat is the pitches are fast enough that you barely have any time to react to whether it's a slider or sinker or it's going to bean you, or if it's just straight down the center or even close to the batting box. You almost have to guess. And I don't want guesswork in my baseball games. I want to be able to see with a little more clarity whether or not this is a pitch that has any chance of being in the batting box area, or if it's going to be even just slightly outside or whatever. And I don't know if it has something to do with the fact that the field of view, with the pitcher being far away as they are, but from release from the glove to the catcher, it's just too bloody fast. So what I found that I was doing was, to make sure that I got like the full experience, was I just started swinging at everything. And after several hours, I still found that there's really no predicting. The only time I found that I could accurately predict anything was if it was a left-handed pitcher and a left-handed batter. And if the left-handed pitcher moved to the right on my screen, I was 90% sure that I was going to get hit by that ball. So I wouldn't bother swinging, and I would get hit, and then it would be a forced base. And they don't even make any kind of deal out of it. Oh, you got hit. Bam! Your next batter's up, and you better be ready to hit the next ball coming. Like, oh, here we go. Now, the fast pace of that, okay, I can appreciate that because I want to get on to the next thing. And there. So that's the batting aspect of it. Pitching, pitchers get fatigued. I appreciated that particular stat. I did not notice any real discernible difference between pitchers and their skill levels, and whether or not the fastballs or the sinkers or the curves did anything different when I was running the controls. So I don't know if that was more gimmicky than anything else. The only difference I found was that if a pitcher was fatigued, you'd go from throwing anywhere between 87 to 97 miles per hour on a ball to like 53. It was just, and the pitcher's like noticeably bending over going, anyway. So at least that aspect of it. Now, they're passing it off as arcade baseball. I can get behind that. I think that the skill level is a little bit too difficult when it comes to batting side. I think the variation in pitching is a little bit low. The graphics of the players were okay. I liked their animations at bat. I liked how frustrated they looked when they got struck out. The change in view from when after you hit a ball is hit and you're looking at the outfield, that's pretty cool. The players are kind of small, but they move around in a somewhat natural fashion. Dives happen when they're trying to really catch a good one. Okay, cool. That's cool stuff. And maybe I'm just spoiled, I expect a little bit more detail out of a sports game nowadays. Like the audience reactions. The audience are just simple sprites, it seems, that just move, not changing anything under any circumstances, even if a pop fly hits somebody in the face. I was just at a baseball game today, and I saw a dude get nailed in the back by a pop fly, and there was a reaction to that. You know what else there was a reaction to? When the home team scores, and the background crowd noise in the game went from kind of a dull roar to a less dull roar, and then back to the dull roar. They obviously acknowledged it, but it wasn't particularly exciting. And I don't know about you, but if I just expect a little bit more. The theme song music was pretty cool. There wasn't much of a soundtrack worth speaking of, so I won't really talk about that too much. Most of the sound effects were appropriate, but I thought audience reactions could have been amped up a little bit. Other baseball experiences that just seem like things you would expect. Dun, 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 dun. And maybe that just wasn't their focus. They wanted a purely simple arcade baseball experience, and that's what they focused on. They got it, but I think it's a little bit hard to play. One thing I do want to address that happened during the course of playing was in like the first couple hours I was playing, and this was obviously during the ramp-up time when I was trying to figure out what the fuck I'm doing. There were 3 incidents where my player-controlled player missed a ball that was going into that was infield and bouncing into the outfield. And then the 2 CPU-controlled players tried to get to the ball, but an error occurred, and then you saw that little triangle above their head. You'd hear the computer voice say, "Uh-oh," which that's what I thought they were saying. It could have been he was saying error, but it sounded like he was saying "uh-oh," and then bam, it exited you out to the main screen of the Switch saying that an error had occurred. This was communicated to the folks over at the team, and they had been hugely responsive, very fastly responsive. I've actually emailed back and forth with them a couple of times because they wanted a little bit more detail about the circumstances of what was happening. I didn't get any recordings of what was happening, so they asked me if I could try to recreate it. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to recreate the scenario in which that happened in the hours that I've played since then, but I will definitely keep trying that because it looks like it's something that they take seriously and they want to get that resolved.
It's good to hear that they're very interested in figuring out what the issue is and taking care of it. Definitely.
Yeah, I like that they take it seriously and they're not like blowing somebody off.
Yeah. So overall, for $30, what are your thoughts on RBI on the Switch?
For $30, I'd say try it. I wish I could give it a stronger. I almost want to give it a stronger review than that, just because how great the dev team has been regarding addressing concerns that players have, but in terms of bugs and such. But just the overall gameplay, for $30, I don't know that it's enjoyable enough to be something that you rush out and buy. It's not like there are a lot of other baseball options for Switch either.
Yeah, there are precisely no other options.
So yeah, this would definitely be a try it. I would, if this were me, I would try it, and I would probably say, meh, I'll wait until something else comes out and then just go back to playing Breath of the Wild. And trying to find a few more frickin' shrines and whatever.
You'll be looking forever. Find all the seeds and then come back to us.
Oh my God. There are 400 seeds, aren't there?
No, there's like 700 some.
What?
Yeah.
There's 700 seeds?
Yeah.
I think I've found like 200 at this point.
Yeah, the rewards cap out, I think, around the 400 some, but so you're not trying to find all of them, there's a shitload of extras.
I already heard the spoilers of what you get if you get all the seeds.
Yeah.
Yeah. I won't spoil it for anybody, but it's almost worth it.
Oh, man. Well, George, thank you so much for joining us and covering some Switch goodness for us. Do you have any final words to sum it all up?
Sport ball.
All right, next game to talk about is called Redout Lightspeed Edition, developed by 34 Big Things, published by 34 Big Things and 505 Games. It released August 29th on Xbox One and PS4 for $39.99, previously available on Steam and the Nintendo Switch. Lightspeed Edition includes the Europa, Neptune, and Vertex expansions, adding 15 more circuits. Redout is pure anti-grav racing, a tribute to the classic arcade racing monsters. It's designed to be an uncompromising, fast, tough, and satisfying driving experience, soaked in the vertigo that stands at the core of the genre. Your opponents will be fast and unforgiving, ready to challenge the Solar Redout Racing League? Well, we brought in our good friend making his return to SML, Boge, Original Medium. How are you doing, man?
I'm still medium. I'm doing well. Very well.
How've things been?
Things have been pretty good. Yeah, that's all we really got.
Cool. So tell us about Redout.
Redout. Well, I want to start off saying that I suck at racing games. And any kind of simulation car driving games in general, I find all of the guardrails, all of them. And but I have to say, if you're into racing games, this is a real fun one. The colors and the graphics are really cool, and it may not be as in depth as some of the other racing games like Forza where you can actually do a lot more upgrades and customization to your vehicles, but it still gives a little bit of giving it your own special splash. There are customizable, if that's a word, aspects of the game. Several different vehicles that you can drive and classes of vehicles. But what I thought was really cool was this is a futuristic game, and each car that you unlock gives you a history of how this vehicle came to be. You know what I mean?
Oh, wow, that's really cool.
So it's not just like, hey, it's the future and you're racing. Go at it. It's a little bit of a storyline, which is pretty neat.
Nice. So I know the description mentions the arcade racing monsters. I'm guessing they're kind of referring to things like Wipeout and F-Zero.
Oh, yeah. This game reminded me of F-Zero right off the bat, right when I looked up some of the trailers of the game. That futuristic, I'm flying a car, like a hover car, no wheels. The kind of upgrades that it has, not upgrades, the specials that you have where the turbo boost, and the exhaust and everything, that just, it all reminded me of F-Zero, playing that when I was like young teens on the SNES, I think it was.
So what else? What else is in this game? Tell us about it.
Well, for idiots like me, I have to tell you, you can't move forward unless you place at least third. First place will get a gold medal. Second place a silver. Third place is a bronze. Fourth place and later, they just say, do it again. It sucked.
So you got to get good.
I did a lot of doing it again because it sucked. But once I got to handle the game, I got a lot of bronze places, because I rule.
I'm proud of you.
Thank you. There's 4 classes. You start out class 1, and you start out with 1 ship. The more money you make, the more ships you can unlock, and each ship can be upgraded in 4 different areas. Once you upgrade the car in those 4 areas, you're done. And one of the cool things is I got a accomplishment for upgrading the first car. I upgraded all the way in the class 1. I got an accomplishment that says you upgraded a class 1 car to the fullest or whatever, and he goes, I don't know what good that's going to do you, but congratulations. Like, all right, I wasted my money now. Now I feel like I wasted my money real well.
You did.
I did. So, but hey, that upgrade got me a gold medal or 2. So watch your mouth.
Nice. So how many courses, how much is there to do in this game? Because I know some people out there might be worried about a $40 price tag. Do you think it's justified? Is there enough content in the game?
I know that there's probably about 12 races, maybe more, maybe 15 in the first class. I finished the first class, and when you go into the second class, you have to upgrade. You have to buy a class 2 vehicle, and it won't let you race a class 1 vehicle in the class 2 race, and vice versa, obviously. So I unlocked 2 class 2 vehicles, and I can't get past the first race. So that's how far I got.
Well, as a cheat sheet, the game has 11 different game modes, over 100 events, and 35 different tracks in the game. So it seems like you were just able to scratch the surface while losing frequently.
Losing very frequently. I tell you what, I put quite a few hours into this game in the week or a little over a week that I had it, and I have not yet begun to defile myself. It's truly a game that's planning on kicking my ass repeatedly. But
and I'm assuming you plan on letting the game kick your ass a bunch more.
Well, absolutely, because it doesn't lose. I get frustrated, but it doesn't lose that enjoyment of like, all right, well, maybe this time,
Yeah.
And I'm still enjoying the game, even though I've only gotten a quarter of the way through the game.
Gotcha. So I guess the important question is, for $40, what is your verdict on this game?
For $40, if you're a fan of racing games, especially a fan of those old futuristic racing games, like we had said, Wipeout and F-Zero, this game is going to give you many, many hours of enjoyment. I feel like it's worth the $40 if you enjoy racing games. If you don't necessarily enjoy racing games, you might enjoy this game anyway, just because it's got really cool tracks and scenes and what you do exactly. You know, it's not just like a figure eight race. You know, you do loop-de-loops and you're going up the bank, and it's a really pretty cool game. You know.
I think my personal favorite part of this game was I spent some time watching people streaming it on Twitch, and one guy, it was going so fast for him, he got sick on camera.
That hasn't happened to me yet, but I could see it happening. I would like to tell you that I got myself going so fast one time. I was so excited I was in first place, and once I get in first place, that's when I just, like, you know, you lock up. It's like, oh shit, now I have to be really careful. I can't hit anything, so I hit everything, because I'm trying to not hit anything.
Nice.
And then everyone flies by, or, you know, do too much damage to your car, so you blow up, and then everyone flies by. Yeah.
Always fun. Well, Boge, thank you so much for covering this game for us, and do you have any final words to sum it up?
Yeah, thank you for not making me do the dummy run, because that would have been a lot of fun for everyone but me.
All right, next up, we have 2 PlayStation RPGs to talk about, and of course, we're going to bring in our good friend Chris Taylor. Chris, how are you doing?
I'm doing good.
Nice. It's
relaxing with some chocolate.
Such an anticlimactic answer.
Yeah. I'm good.
Yay. Well, we're going to kick things off with Antiquia Lost, developed by EXE Create, published by KEMCO. It released September 5th on PS4 and the Vita for $14.99 with cross-buy. Buying, a young man who lives in a small rural village spends his days peacefully doing jobs and dealing with demons for the villagers. One day he is asked by Lunaria, a girl who lives near the village, to go with her to the royal capital. After a journey full of surprises, the two of them arrive at the capital. They are thrilled to be in the city for the first time, but they are greeted by one of the castle soldiers who are supposed to protect the citizens. With more and more disappearances occurring, the ruler's expectations are mixed. Ooh. Chris, what's going on in this game?
Well, this is of course a game I have previously talked about on this here podcast in the Steam version. Actually, was the I think the first X Create KEMCO jam that I actually put some time into on Steam. And this version is now on PS4, which is great for me because I play, like, my computer is a hand-me-down laptop, literally from a 13-year-old girl. Like, it still has a property of, like, label on the bottom.
Oh my god.
It's adorbs. But it's not the best Steam machine, which is why I can't really do too much with it. But so I did review it last time, and this time I've been playing it on PS4 with a controller that totally works. I didn't have to reprogram, and it's been a really, really great experience for me to play this game. So, what is Antiquia Lost, I think is what I called it last time.
I think so.
Rhymes with the Spanish word for butter. So, this game is what in my opinion, probably besides Dragon Sinker, but maybe not even. Like, I think this is perhaps the current ultimate evolution in the KEMCO X Create series of, like, throwback sort of 32-bit, 16-bit RPGs. Because this one introduces so many new, like, really super addictive aspects. Some of the ones I went over last time was the lottery system, which is actually dealt with in 2 different forms of currency that enemies randomly drop. So you got your lottery tickets.
I think I remember this.
Yeah, you get your lottery tickets occasionally, and you also get these kind of, I think they call them alchemy jewels, that are also dropped by the tens. And yeah, you totally get to roll the dice to get some of the best armor and weapons and everything like that, which, of course, that's something that they have in Dragon Sinker and a couple of the other, great RPGs that they've been releasing. I think As Divine Cross or As Divine Hearts, I don't remember which is the 3DS one I just reviewed, but it has that as well. But it also combines that with an aspect of As Divine that isn't in Dragon Sinker, and it's one of my favorite things, and that is the weapon amalgamation system, wherein you take your weapon and you can combine it with a weaker or stronger. You can combine weapons basically to sort of pool their status effects that they have. You can introduce new status effects and just generally make your weapons level up alongside you. And as in the previous game, this one also introduces a system where you can get rid of all those pesky extra accessories that enemies drop on you by having Lunaria, who is a lady who is half human and half from a different tribe, quote unquote, of slime people, of which you also get another character who is fully a slime person, and she can eat all your extra accessories for permanent stat bonuses.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And then another system that I don't remember if I actually went over it in the review, but you also get your gardening system where you can take where you have these 3 pots, and you wind up with these stat increasing seeds that if you consume them, then they will increase your stat permanently by 1. But if you plant them and wait for 10 real world minutes, they will grow into fruits that will increase your stats even more, and you can get 3 or anywhere between like 3 to 7 fruits from a single seed. So that's a really good system as well. And occasionally, like I said, you can actually grow a really nice weapon or armor from your seed, which is odd, but I'll take it.
So how was the transition from Steam to PlayStation?
Well, for me, having a weak computer and a PlayStation 4 hooked up to a big screen TV in the bedroom, it was fantastic. In every way, it's just a better experience. If you're a PS4 owner and you really want a nice addictive RPG, this is a great one to go with, because this is some of the best stuff KEMCO's put out. And
Vita as well, because it is cross-buy.
And Vita, yeah, exactly, yeah. I haven't been able to get it on Vita yet because I've been just playing Ys VIII, but we'll get to that. So you can get the cross-buy with it. The thing they've sort of also done with this aesthetically, it's got really great music. Enemy sprites are no longer like this kind of static Final Fantasy VI looking thing. Like, they actually do move now, and so do your characters. So you get a little bit of this, nice animated motion thing going on. So that's kind of cool. Although a couple of the KEMCO games are, I think the other one that's available on PS4 has like 3D polygonal battles, but it's all just aesthetics, really. So this one kind of bumps it up from the earlier games.
So I guess overall for $15, what is your final verdict on Mantiquia Lost?
Mantiquia Lost. Definitely get it. $15 is well spent on it. It's a really big adventure. You'll spend a lot of time doing the stat boost and stuff, and it's got extra levels of difficulty, so that if you do spend all that time, you'll be met with enough challenge. I'm actually playing through this one in hard mode, since I already started it in normal mode, and already I'm seeing like some where my hard work is more paying off. Oh, and by the way, I don't know if the Steam version has this. I didn't remember it being on there, but the PlayStation 4 definitely has in-game purchases now. It's basically you can get all these items to like really increase your speed, or you can get an item that actually takes out all the enemy encounters.
Weird.
For a couple of bucks, like real world dollars.
Well, at least it's optional, right?
Yeah, it's kind of nice for if you just want to read, want to go through the story, which this game actually has, I want to say, because I mentioned before, probably a few times by now, that KEMCO EXE Create games alternate between having a really unlikable hero and a really likable one. And this one flipped the coin on likable. So actually all the characters are pretty likable in this game. So it's really nice to sort of, it makes the story, I think, a little more interesting when you're like actually behind, the motivations of the heroes and such.
True. Speaking of things that are very likable, the other game that you're here to talk about is to give your final verdict on Ys VIII, Lacrimosa of DANA, developed by Nihon Falcom, published by NIS America. It's going to release on the 12th, so it should be out by the time you hear this, on PS4, Vita, and Steam for $59.99. Adol, awakened, shipwrecked, and stranded on a cursed island. There, he and the other shipwrecked passengers he rescues from a village to challenge fearsome beasts and mysterious ruins on the isolated island. Amidst this, he begins to dream of a mysterious blue-haired maiden living in an unknown world. Join Adol as he unravels the riddle of the cursed isle and the blue-haired maiden. Chris, tell us about the blue-haired maiden.
Well, she's a buff man, about 30 years old. His name's Dogi.
By the way, since we last talked about this, I've been able to put a couple of hours into the game myself, and holy shit, this is a beautiful game.
Is it not? It is so pretty. Like, I really cannot wait to be playing this on the PlayStation 4 when it ships. It is so pretty. 2 days.
It is so pretty on the PS4. It is so pretty.
Yeah, like, I mean, it's also gorgeous on the Vita, but it's like, got a 40-inch screen versus a 7-inch screen,
Or in my case, a 65-inch screen.
Oh, dang.
Fuck yeah.
Okay, so, having dumped a whole bunch more hours into this game, I'm sort of I've seen the thing kind of more unfold into what it is, and it, believe it or not, actually is way better than I even thought it was, just getting out of the first chapter.
Wow, because last week you gave this a preemptive buy it. And I was like, well, let's hold off on a final verdict, and now you're saying it's even better.
Yes, because what this kind of brings to the table is a more, to borrow a phrase, a more Metroidvania experience. So the key of a Metroidvania is that after you defeat a boss or get through an event of some kind or, do whatever, you get the item that lets you explore more of your environment, and then you spend time backtracking and going through and
re-exploring what you couldn't explore the first time around.
Yes, and uncovering all that good treasure and stuff. And
all those walls I couldn't take care of earlier.
You'll be able to take care of them, yes.
Sweet.
And this game does it in one of the most clever ways I've ever seen. In 2 different ways. One is that there are obstacles in the game which eventually, as you start rescuing people, like finding survivors of the shipwreck that starts the game off, you find out that obstacles can be overcome if you have rescued enough people. They will actually gather around and make a group effort to clear some rocks or bust up a stump or whatever is impeding your progress. So in that sense, you can only get so far before you find 8 people, and then once you find 8 people, you can then send them after this one obstacle. So that's a really interesting way of getting things done. It's not just relying on a MacGuffin or something. It's just like, we actually need more manpower.
Yeah, it's nice to see a game that treats the other villagers in the game as actual people that do shit, instead of, I'm going to stand at my store for 24 hours a day, forever. Yeah,
it's really great. The game builds on this idea of community and sort of what you would call interdependence. That is to say, everybody depends on each other, and I really like that about it. I mean, and it's true, some of the people that you rescue are actually not that useful, but it actually comes back up and you sort of get to see people's stories unravel, and everybody's got a unique thing. They're not just there to, you know, it's less like a Suikoden game where it's like sometimes in Suikoden you'll, because it's 108 people every time, it's like sometimes you'll rescue a person and they'll only do like one thing for the rest of the game.
Yeah.
But like in this one, it's the people are much more people-y, if you will. So that's a good aspect of it, and it really makes me look forward to rescuing more people and like sort of getting to know their personalities. There's lots of cutscenes now where, you know, Adol, who, by the way, actually does say more things. It turns out you need to give him a fishing pole. But yeah, seeing him and the other characters like learn about each other and like sort of get along and tell their stories, it's really, really enthralling. It's like, it's good writing. I was really, really impressed by that. Just considering how story light, you know, Ys games always have been, at least through Arc of Napishtim and such. But yeah, it turns out you get some interesting little side games that you can sort of do anytime, such as giving Adol a fishing pole and pointing it at some shadowfish, like an Animal Crossing game. Only it's way easier than Animal Crossing, but it's just great.
It is. Fucking
you
Animal
pull out
Crossing.
fish. Yeah, you pull out fish, and Adol like holds them up and like smiles and stuff. He's so happy to be fish, and I'm like, it warms my heart. And yeah, if you catch the fish, like it kind of keeps track of the biggest ones you caught and all this other good stuff. And the bigger the fish, the more materials you can get from the fish. And materials can be used for things like potions, cooking, which if you cook a dish, you can actually keep it as an item and it will like restore the life of everyone in the party, which you will need because holy crap, enemies are actually really tough in this game. But so it's like, you know, you're in the middle of a boss fight and you're like, okay, let's all sit down and eat some fish soup and you know, get back into this battle.
So
But,
what difficulty level have you been playing on? Because there's what, like 5 different difficulty levels in the game?
Yeah, I think so. I'm playing it on medium rare, really. It's just regular old play the game. But yeah,
I've been bitching out on easy.
That's fine. I mean, it's a great game for that because if you just want to watch the story, it's that good. The other thing that I like, speaking of materials, is that yes, you will wind up backtracking through familiar lands in order to uncover new treasures, new secrets, and even finding new characters. And so you'll wind up refighting a bunch of these old enemies and getting this huge stockpile of old items that don't really do anything anymore. Well, what they set up in the village is a trading system where you can take those old materials and actually trade them for new stuff that is actually useful.
Yeah, I like how they explain that as well, how it's like, there's a sign that's like, we trust you. It's like, we have to help each other out. So it's not just a random store popped up somewhere. They actually explain this shit. It's cool.
Oh, yeah. I like that it's Dogi in charge of all this, because he has always been, like, you know, the big, strong sweetheart of the game.
Yeah, he's a good Dogi. Like,
for real, low-key, him and Adol have to have something going there. Like, I think romantically, but I didn't say that.
Well, I know who you're shipping.
Yeah, I think that's probably happened quite a few times by now. To be honest, because of Adol's like wild like mullet in the Ys VIII era, I always thought he actually was a girl, and that they just kind of, you know, misgendered him, or just didn't know. But then it turned out I didn't know. He just has a mullet. Well, had. I think he hasn't had a mullet since like the 90s.
I still can't get over that it's Adol and not Adol, because I've been calling him Adol for like my entire life.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know how to handle this.
Since the voice acting is actually good in this game, I've been hearing his voice spoken that way so much that I am getting used to it. Whereas Ys VI, I actually turned off all the voice acting, even though I actually hear it's pretty good. So next time I play through it, I'll play through it with voices. But yeah, Adol it is.
So I guess we need to double back and get a final verdict on this for $60. Ys VIII. What do you think?
Nah, don't get it. Just leave it on the shelf. I'm just kidding.
You did that joke last week.
Did I?
Yeah.
I'm getting predictable. Okay, well, yes, definitely buy this game. You know, pay whatever price, because you're going to be paying more later anyway if you wait on this one. Historically, that's been the case. But yeah, go and get it, and play through it. It's a wonderful experience. I mean, it literally, like, all the landmarks in the game where you can fast travel on your map are each like these gorgeous like island things, like the rainbow waterfalls and the blue stone, and like all of them are jaw-dropping. Like, you have to see and experience this game. It is really an elevated Ys experience, so go get it.
I know I've put significantly less time into the game than you, but I have to absolutely agree. It plays really well. It looks beautiful. The music is incredible. I need to get the soundtrack to this when the collector's edition is out. I'm still trying to decide if I want to pick up the collector edition or not. We don't really have the money, and MagFest is coming, but I really, really want that collector's edition.
Not for me. I'm setting this one out, so I think I might get that collector's edition if I can.
Well, do it up, man. If it's still available. I haven't even checked the NIS store lately.
Yeah, we'll see. But either way, just go out there and get this game, people. Seriously. It has my heartiest recommendation. I
absolutely agree. And NIS, if anyone from NIS is listening, please, for the love of God, bring this to more platforms. Bring it to the Switch. Yes. I mean, it's on the Vita. We know this could be played on a Switch. And for the love of God, please bring it to Xbox. Will you please support the Xbox? If it's one game ever that you bring to Xbox, let it be Ys VIII, because this game is incredible and more people need to play it.
It's true. It's true.
Well, Chris, thank you so much for joining us. Always fun having you on. And any final words to sum everything up?
Yes, if you're a Swedish millionaire, don't be a racist.
All right, next game to talk about is called A Robot Named Fight, developed and published by Matt Bitner, released September 7th on Steam for $9.99. A Robot Named Fight is a metroidvania roguelike focused on exploration and item collection. Explore different procedurally generated labyrinth each playthrough and discover randomized power-ups that allow you to traverse obstacles and secrets and explode meat beasts.
Yeah. you can do either one, but the exploding is the final result, hopefully.
I think we've covered on this show that reading has quickly not become my strong suit anymore.
That's okay.
So, as you can tell, our friend Tom Miller's here to talk about this one. Tom, how you doing?
Yeah, well, I'm doing all right today. Feeling a little weird, but you know what? That's okay. I feel that way most of the time. So, yeah. Robot Named Fight.
Tell me about this game. What is it?
Yeah. So actually, this is a really cool project. It's a game made, I think, pretty much entirely by one guy. He did game dev is such a huge thing. It's hard for I'm sure he had other people around, but like music and graphics and game engine and stuff, it's really impressive. But like the description says, it is a Metroidvania roguelike. And what I really, really like about this game, most of the time when you hear Metroidvania, it tends to be more on the Castlevania side of it, like patterned after like Symphony of the Night, where you have a lot of melee combat, like leveling up, like RPG elements and magic. But like this basically feels like a roguelike version of a Metroid game, which I think is really cool. And it's something that like it's so just like so subtly different in how it plays, but so much different that it's just like, man, this feels like something that I've been wanting to play for a really long time. So what I mean by it feels like a Metroid game, it has this really weird, like dark, oppressive sci-fi atmosphere to it, and you end up getting the abilities that you get allow you to enter new areas, be able to fight enemies more effectively. But because it is also a roguelite, a lot of this is randomly generated. It's procedural every time. And the game actually pulls this off really, really well, I think, because each time you play through a run of the game, it does a really good job of like adapting the design of the areas to what items you have, and making it actually feel, with this, I feel like you have like the risk of feeling like everything is just kind of thrown in a big box and you just like explore randomly, but it really does feel like a cohesive game as you're playing through it, which I think is really cool. So yeah, I was really impressed by the level design and how he was able to get that feeling cohesive. It like that is really respectable, I think. And it controls like you can't wall jump, which was kind of like, well, actually, you know what? You unlock abilities as you go. I've done like several runs of this game. I'm not very good at it, so I'm still working on like. There's a lot of stuff I probably have yet to unlock, but right now you can't do wall jumps. But other than that, it feels like pretty much exactly like Super Metroid, which is really, really cool. So
is that a time bomb going off?
That was somebody saying that somebody I know liked somebody else's tweet.
Yay, so, thanks, Twitter.
Yeah.
Quick aside, I fucking hate how Twitter is now like, this person liked this tweet. I don't give a shit, Twitter. I don't care. If they retweet it, okay, let me know. But if they just like it, get fucked. Please, Twitter.
I'm right with you on that one.
Anyway, robots.
So robots. So something it's a really unique. Well, I don't know if it's unique, but it's kind of a weird take on the whole like robot singularity plot. I feel like because a lot of the time it's like humans fighting back against robots who are taking over the world, and in this one it's like the robots took over, and then like what could happen that would stop that? And the answer is like this giant weird ass like Lovecraftian abomination of just like a bunch of body parts just raining down on everything. And it's really weird and really creepy but it has like this whole like really cartoony aspect to it too. It almost has like this like almost like a John Carpenter style like gore and weirdness thing going on, and it could maybe turn some people off, but I think it's done so well, and the art is just it's so detailed and weird, and you have like areas where you just have these like giant like tendrils of meat that are just like going through the background, and it's just I don't know, it's like if it was I know like this could go either way in terms of like praise or criticism, but like it is good. It looks like everything looks really cohesive, I think. And the one criticism, I don't know, I was reading some other reviews of it earlier, and somebody was saying that it's a really short game, which like it's kind of one of those games that's designed to be played through in like an hour and a half. Because,
I was gonna say, if it's procedural generated and they advertise it's a unique labyrinth with more than 4 billion unique runs. Oh yeah. Shouldn't it be a shorter game to encourage replayability? That's not something that you'd want to spend 8 hours on.
Yeah. But actually, it is a little bit more forgiving than some roguelites. Like, you do occasionally find save points that essentially give you an extra life. They break whenever you die, but I don't know. I thought it was cool, and it's a little bit of a middle ground for people who may either not want that experience or who just kind of suck at video games like me. I got to stop hammering in that I suck at video games point so much. It's not really that.
Hey, you're just good at starting fires.
I think we were
Was I recording
about
that part
before we actually started.
Oh no, I wasn't recording that part. Never mind.
In case anyone asked, I was not solely responsible for the entire western half of the United States being on fire.
No, but you were responsible for the hurricanes.
Yeah. Somehow. But yeah, anyway, so if you are looking, like my final sort of judgment on this is that it is something that, as kind of obvious of an idea as it is to have a Metroid-style Metroidvania game or roguelite game, it's one of the first that I've actually played, and for me, it's really a breath of fresh air. And if you're looking for something like that or something in that genre with like more of like a gory sci-fi aesthetic, it's a really well done one. So yeah,
nice. It looks really, really cool, and I wonder if he's going to bring it to other platforms. It seems like it's basically just like for the most part, a one-man team, and the website shows that his wife helped with it as well. So I don't know if he's planning on bringing it to consoles, but we all know I would love to see this on Xbox, right?
Oh yeah, totally.
We all know. It's not beat around the bush.
And it is developed in Unity too, so I'm thinking it would probably be a pretty easy. I have no idea.
Unity just has like
easy, but
Unity just has like a toggle switch where it's like Xbox Switch flipped, and then like Nintendo Switch flipped, and then PS4 Switch flipped. It's so easy. We all know that.
Yeah, it's probably more of a licensing thing than anything, but yeah, hopefully it does come out because it's a lot of fun, and I imagine that it'll get expanded as well into the future, and I still have tons of stuff to unlock, so I can't wait to see what else it has to offer because I like what I've played so far quite a lot.
So one more time, final verdict for $10.
Get it, and it is on sale until September 14th for 25% off.
So by the time you hear this, you'll have 2 more days to get it for $7.50.
Yeah,
and you could get a soundtrack as well for $5.
Mm-hmm. It has some really cool music too. So
cool. I will have to look into that myself sometime.
Yeah.
Well, Tom, thank you as always for covering the game, and I'm sure we'll talk to you again soon. Yeah,
absolutely. Look forward to it.
All right, moving on. Next game to talk about is called All-Star Fruit Racing, developed and published by 3dclouds.it. It released September 4th on Steam for $14.99. All-Star Fruit Racing is the kart racing game you've been waiting for. Easy to learn, but hard to master. Choose your character, customize your kart, and play the way that tempts you most. We have our friend Royal Sefton covering this one, and he's here this time instead of an email. Royal, how the hell are you?
I'm all right. How you doing?
Doing good. It's good to have you on the show and be a part of this stupidity.
Oh, no, thanks for having me. I love to be a part of something stupid. I mean, wonderful. I mean, great. I appreciate you inviting.
We've known each other for many, many years, so we both know how stupid each other is.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I know how stupid both of us is.
Indeed.
So, yeah.
All-Star Fruit Racing, what is this game?
Yeah, so it's a kart racer. Good couch game, I suppose, but it's got a few edges I want to talk about. So it kind of fashioned the style of Mario Kart. Pick up power-ups, go around the track, beat each other senseless with them, but it's all fruit themed. In fact, even in the cutscenes, it's kind of interspersed with Fruit Ninja style facts. Did you know? Did you know the world's largest apple is 1.8 kilos or something like that? Goofy stuff.
Wow.
But
we're learning things.
Yes, it's edutainment. But each of the karts is associated with a driver, and each of the drivers is associated with a fruit. So you can play as, I think there's a coconut girl, there's a pineapple person, there's a cherry person, and there's an avocado. And the big distinction between all those is actually not the karts or even the driving style, which is one of those things I want to kind of cover in a bit, but instead these power-ups that they have. So they have like a master power-up they can pick up on the track, and it's their most powerful weapon. So,
it's kind of like the character-specific ones in Mario Kart.
Yeah. So you've got the banana character, and she has this bazooka she fires at the next available driver down the track.
Ah.
Or you got one that's an avocado, and the avocado kind of turns into this it's like a big plant that just starts eating anything in front of it. Stuff like that. But everybody has the same driving style, so you pick it based on which power up suits you best.
Gotcha.
Rather than picking the kart for better drifting or better speed on the straightaways or anything like that. They all seem to have the same driving characteristics.
Gotcha. So they kind of like keep it a level playing field for the actual vehicles themselves.
Yeah, which actually is one of the things I found kind of interesting when I was doing the solo career, the solo tracks. You play by yourself, and you've got I want to say between 8 and 10 total cars on the track, and they always come in the same position with the same distance or really close to it. So like the one in first place versus the one in second place are like 0.2 or 0.03 apart, and then further on down the line they're all really close together, and no matter how solidly you do the track, there's always a couple that are trying to drift right into you. Like they're right at your heels. So the AI is super, super aggressive, and it's kind of punishing, because with some of the tracks, they get a little narrow, and you can get snagged on something, and there's just no recovery from that. You don't have any sort of blue shell attack or anything that'll get you back up the line.
Yeah.
As annoying as the blue shell is, it serves a purpose. So, it's a little costly when you just make that one wrong turn and you go from 1st to 7th and you're never getting back. So.
Well, it looks cute. I think it has a cool visual style to it. Very colorful, very pretty.
Yes. Yeah, and they've really got a good handle on the aesthetics. It's fun to look at. My kids like the look of it. Decent music to it. They've polished a lot of the aesthetics in a way that I think is very, very pleasant. It's just some gameplay stuff that they really should be working out, and that's the early access piece.
Yeah.
They still have only half the carts released and half the tracks released, so I know there's a lot more coming. And hopefully, with it being early access, they're going to be real responsive to that sort of feedback and get an even more refined game out of it.
Yeah. So what kind of feedback would you give to this? It sounds like, from what you were telling me, like all the drivers kind of have their own set path, and if you try getting in the way of that path, they will fuck you up.
Yeah, I would say that's accurate. If you really learn how to drift super aggressively, you can really edge out ahead of them, because they have that drift power boosting type thing. You hold a drift long enough, you let go, you stay on the track, you don't rub up against the walls, and you'll charge ahead a little bit. Mm-hmm. Well, you can do that, and you can kind of edge ahead of the AI a little bit there. But it seems like there isn't really a good beginner level for the game. My kids, being little as they are, 4 and 6, they're kind of new to video games, and to some extent, they're not likely to take first place when they're playing on like normal or hard difficulty or anything. But
yeah.
we do like a 3-player couch game, and they're pulling up Blast, and it would be neat to have like an easier introduction, easier difficulty level for that. To kind of acclimate younger players, because it is very much a kid-friendly, family-friendly type game.
Yeah. It just seems like the biggest issue would be some difficulty balancing.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good summary. One other thing that's kind of interesting about it is the way the tracks are composed. When you do the career mode, you'll have a number of laps, and it'll be a circuit. But when you do some of the custom races, they've got a lot of these. They're just like a slalom type track, or a single straight track. There's point A to point B, and they're just a little short sometimes. Like one race can be only 26 seconds long.
Oh wow!
Which I thought, it'd be cool if they could have fleshed that out a little bit, made it a little longer. But in general, I think that's pretty much what they've got to work on most, is just getting the difficulty, I think, evened out a little bit. So the drivers, they can have a slightly different driving style. You can have less predictability as far as who's going to take first or how close they'll be together. Some way to really take a commanding lead to reward really strong driving. That stuff just doesn't be there yet.
I know that's a common issue that people run into with difficulty, is the developers play their game so much that they get great at the game without realizing that normal people are going to have trouble with it. And if this is geared towards a younger audience, it sounds like it needs to be toned down difficulty-wise. Yeah, I think that would really be to their benefit, and they'd probably see some better sales doing that. But as it stands today, since it is early access and they've got an active dev blog and they're constantly updating the community around it, I have a feeling that if you bet on this, it's probably going to pay off. I think that they seem paying attention to people, and still updating their blog with what's coming next and all that stuff. So hopefully, if you jump in it now, it'll be a much better game later too. Yeah, which in my eyes, that speaks volumes. A game can be rough in some spots, but if the developers are listening and they're working on the game and improving based on feedback and constantly trying to make it a better game, that always wins points with me.
Absolutely. So I guess it could be a winner.
So I guess the big question is, for $15, what's your thoughts on this one?
It's a pretty firm try in my book if you want a kart racer, because, just to be blunt, there aren't a lot of those for the PC anyway. So you've got, I think, this dates me significantly. There was Wacky Wheels in the 90s, which was kind of a Super Mario Kart type game. The very flat Mode 7 style graphics. There's Sonic All-Star Racing, was it? That one was great, obviously. But there's not a whole lot else in that field that's out there just for computer, out for Windows. And I think that, for $15, it really does address a niche that is really lacking. It could be good. It's just a matter of, hopefully they kind of learn to sort of ease the younger players into it, make it a little easier to pick up initially, and maybe some other tweaks and improvements here and there to make it more accessible.
Sounds good. Well, I know early access, so there's still plenty of time for them to work on it and fine-tune it, and hopefully they'll hear this and take some of that advice to heart and tone down the difficulty. But holy shit, I think your phone went off.
Yeah, I think it did. All of a sudden started buzzing. What is that? Sorry about that. That was unexpected.
Oh, man. Well, Royal, thank you so much for covering this one and joining us on the show and chatting about it. It'll be good to have you on again sometime.
Yeah, hey, thank you. My pleasure. I appreciate it.
All right, and finally tonight, final reviews to talk about. We're bringing in our good friend Pernell Vaughn. Pernell, how are you doing today?
All right, though I just dropped my pen. Nobody wants that to happen, but yeah, all right, pretty good actually. Weather's getting better, cooler. Summer lovers be damned. Screw you. How about yourself, though?
Bring on winter. Fucking bring it on. I'm so tired of heat.
Yeah. Well, I won't go far as to say winter yet, but I want fall. I want the happy medium to kick in for a while. No AC, but no coat.
Oh, come on. We know fall and spring don't exist anymore. It just goes from summer to winter, back to summer, with construction in the middle.
That is true, but I like the construction. I want the scaffolding time.
I guess spring is good because you could, go out and fly a kite in the springtime, which leads us to the first game that you're here to talk about, which that was a really...
Oh, that was the worst segue ever.
That was such a bad segue, but I had to go for it. First game you're here to talk about is called Cosmic Kites, developed and published by Fish Moose Interactive, which is an incredible name for a company. It released September 7th on Steam for $8.99. Cosmic Kites is a colorful and energetic local multiplayer game where the players control animal spirits trying to wipe each other out in order to be the last man standing. With only 3 buttons to keep track of, it's a no-brainer to involve new and inexperienced players without them feeling left behind. Pernell, what'd you think of Cosmic Kites?
Actually pretty fun, though not easy at all, that's for damn sure. Because those 3 buttons that they describe are left trigger, right trigger, and A. Each button, well, I say that using an Xbox controller on Steam, but yeah, 3 buttons. And the 2 triggers are used to steer your ship, your kite that never stops moving, and A is a teleport button. And the idea is that you are a kite that is constantly flying around, and enemy objects are popping up on the screen at different times. Like it might be like an enemy kites that might show up, or like a long vine that'll sweep across the screen, or giant spiky balls, and like 3 other things I've come across as I play the game, more or less. And the idea is that you just want to survive as long as possible. So the way you actually can stop things yourself is your kite, the tail of your kite, can kill things if it runs into it. You can't yourself physically hurt enemies short of using certain power-ups that pop up on the field later in the game. But if you don't have any power-ups at the time, you can just have an enemy crawl and crash into your tail and they'll die. And if the front of you crashes into anything, you die instantly. So in addition to the turning function that I mentioned earlier, there's also a teleport function. When you press the A button, you kind of do a short hop out into the distance, and it allows you to kind of jump over obstacles or scenarios where you would normally crash into something. But there's a recharge time to that, so you can't just kind of teleport across the screen ad nauseum because the game ain't got time for that.
Just spam the teleport.
Yeah, which they know people would do if they gave them the option, so you had to put the cooldown on it. So this game is not really... I think the single player is more of an afterthought they kind of put into it, because the way that works is every time you just basically like kind of how Geometry Wars the original game was, where it was all about just surviving until you died.
Mm-hmm.
And you keep a combo meter by constantly killing things and constantly collecting power-ups. And when you die, the game will give you some experience points. I'm not sure if it was based on score or time that you survived, but it'll give you experience points. And for every level, it'll unlock something like a new type of multiplayer mode or a new skin for your kite or a new power-up that'll show up on the single-player mode. And I'm going to guess also in the multiplayer mode. But the multiplayer seems to be where they intend the most of the time to go. And what I can gather from what I played is that the multiplayer functions just like the single player. Remember I mentioned there's enemy kites in the single player mode?
Yeah.
Only difference is the kites are humans. And there are different modes that'll pop up that you can unlock. Like I've unlocked modes such as, I don't know the names of them, but there was a mode where your kite could get really long, but your kites also flew much slower. So it was more about a dangerous game as far as like extending ridiculously long tails. There was also modes like where it ramped everything up. There was modes where no one had tails, but the power was just coming up, popping up all over the place. You could kind of blow each other up or try to blow each other with power-up items. And there's like a couple power-up items I've come across. There was like a missile barrage. There was a shield. Some of those unlocked as you played the game. There was a missile barrage, a shield, a boost icon, a tail extending icon, and a plastic blood icon. So
the tail aspect makes it sound kind of like this is a multiplayer version of Snake, where you're just trying to fuck with other people and run in their way.
Now, I would say that's a very good thing. A good way to put it. It is Snake.
Nice,
because you die if you crash into your own tail too.
I know you said the single player felt kind of like an afterthought, but we got to give them credit for including a single player in this game, given how many of these local multiplayer games come out with just the local multiplayer and no single player aspect at all.
Yeah, I could appreciate that, because if anything, at least it gives you something to do, like for practice, if no one's around to play the game with you and you just want to get some time in. Yeah. And it's not just a bunch of drones on the screen. There's actually like other enemies that I'm not sure even show up in the multiplayer version of the game. So
nice. So I guess the big question, $9. What's your thoughts?
I'd say try if you don't have people around, and possibly I'd say maybe even buy it if you don't, and you just want something kind of like a beat 'em up sort of gameplay aspect to run around with for a bit.
Sounds good. Next game to talk about, I'm going to handle this one, is called X-Morph Defense. Developed and published by Xor Studios. It released August 30th on Xbox One, PS4, and Steam for $19.99. Unique fusion of a top-down shooter and tower defense strategy. You are the invader. Use destructive weapons or lead your enemies into a maze of towers. Strategize in the build mode by carefully selecting various types of alien towers, or throw yourself right into the heat of the battle. If you didn't listen to our interview with Xor on our last episode, go back and check that out, because it's a really cool chat. Really fun game. As we mentioned in the description, it is a mix of a top-down twin-stick shooter, which everybody loves, and tower defense, which again, mostly everybody loves. The unique twist to this is that you can switch between the play styles at any time. Your ship has a standard like shooting mode and then a ghost mode, which allows you to place towers and set up your defenses. Before waves, you have as much time as you need to set up the towers for however much resources you have. One of the things I loved about this game is if you place towers and you need to move them or exchange them, you get all of your resources back from removing a tower.
Oh, no penalty. That's kind of nice. So I hate when they penalize you for that.
Because the game is not a very easy game. It's pretty tough, pretty punishing, but it's also very unique in the way it handles the waves, because the AI in this game, it's not just they're on a set path and that's it. If something's in their way, they'll change their path. Like if your guns, you can put fences to link them up, and if you block a road, they'll find a different route, because it's more of like an open city with multiple roads instead of a completely straight path. And a big part of the game is trying to make the mazes as long and intricate as possible to give yourself more time to take them out, instead of just a straight shot to what you're trying to defend. So if you could herd everybody all around the stage as much as you can, that gives your towers more time to attack them. It gives you more time to attack them. It gives you more time to pick up the resources and place more towers. It's all about making your opponents, or not the opponent, but the AI work as hard as they have to get to your base. And the longer it takes them, the better.
Work it, AI.
It really is a cool mechanic with the whole mazing aspect that, you know, it's not just about putting up towers. It's about trying to hinder your opponents as much as possible and then take them out. If you prefer to play it as a shooter, you can, you know, just throw down whatever towers you want in between the waves and then focus on just shooting the entire time during the waves and hoping that your towers can help you out enough to take care of everything else. Or if you want, you can just set towers the entire time. While you're in ghost mode, one of the power-ups lets you pick up scrap from destroyed enemies that builds your resource gauge faster, so you can just focus on picking up scrap and placing more and more towers.
So you'd say that the AI in this game is smarter than something like, say, Lock's Quest, where they would pretty much smash your walls. Like, they would find alternate routes, but it was rare. They'd be more likely to just break your walls down.
Yeah, like in this game, if there's a fence up, they'll just drive around. Like they'll take a different road. If you end up, like, the game won't allow you to completely block a path. I tried to ask him if there was like any kind of, you know, storyline reason why they wouldn't allow it, but he's like, no, it's just the game mechanic. So I was like, you know, you're trying to be fair to the humans, like you're trying to make it a sporting contest or something.
We're aliens of pride.
Yeah, because Lord knows, like, if you could set up a fence and block anyone from getting to your thing, you would just completely block them off. Like, no, make them fight their way through. But the game's like, you can't block their path.
And I'm a ship. I'll just shoot over the fence.
But if you leave even the tiniest gap and you completely block off another route, they'll find their way through that minuscule little gap. Like, it's really intelligent AI in the game when it needs to be. It's not unfair, but it'll make you work for it. A lot of different areas to go through. There's even gigantic boss battles that you have to take care of in the game. For $20, I got to give this one definitely a recommended buy it. It's a lot of fun. It's a unique twist on tower defense. It's more involved instead of start a wave and watch things happen. In that you get to, it's also a twin stick shooter, so you get to be more involved with the game. And I think it's a really solid buy.
I think that style is definitely starting to, well, I don't even want to say starting because it's probably been for a bit, but really picking up a lot more. Like, there's a number of games where they're saying, hey, people want to set up towers and defense, but they don't want to just sit there and watch it happen. They want to get involved. So,
yeah,
you know, I remember back in the days where you had like games like Deception or Traps, which wasn't necessarily tower defense, but it was still kind of like trap defense.
Yeah.
And like, you couldn't do anything but watch your people run around and stuff like that. But so it's nice to see more games let you get involved in it directly.
Yeah, I think it's really cool, though. I appreciate what they did different in the game to make it stand out from all the other, because Lord knows we cover a ton of twin stick shooters on this show.
Mm-hmm.
And there's, you know, lots of twin stick shooters coming out, lots of tower defense games that have been coming out lately, and it's cool to see a nice mix of those with enough unique twists to make it worth checking out and worth buying. And the fact that they use their own, like, their own physics engine for this, their own game engine for this, they're not using, you know, what is it, like renderware or whatever it is that you just license a game engine. They did it all in-house. They don't have a publisher. It's just them. So massive props to them.
What might call it damn near a labor of love.
Pretty much. I think they said that they've been working on the game for 5 years.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
How many people are on their team?
Oh, God. I swear I asked them. I don't know. Go listen to the last episode.
Do your own homework. Yeah, I tell you.
Do your own fucking work.
Fine. I don't need you. I'll figure it out myself by listening to your show.
And since we just talked about a game that we did an interview for, let's do another game we did an interview for. The last game to talk about is called Songbringer, developed by Wizard Fu, published by Double 11. It released September 1st on Xbox One, PS4, and Steam for $19.99. Darkness sleeps just beneath the cracks on the ever-changing planet. The curious will uncover powerful artifacts and forge them anew. The strong will take the nanosword and crush galactic giants. Again, we had an interview with the guys at Wizard Fu about this game. Really, really cool chat. Go back and check out that episode. But Pernell, what did you think of Songbringer?
I have mixed feelings about Songbringer, honestly.
Really?
But I think some of them might be just personal aesthetic choices. Like, originally it took me a little while to even get into it because even though I like the graphics and the trailers and I like the graphics and stills, for some reason when they were actually on my screen in motion, they were driving me crazy. It was like weird flickering that didn't need to be there, and the text was hard to read a lot of the time.
Oh, yeah. I definitely brought up the text on the interview.
Yeah, the text was hard to read, and the music drove me nuts. Like, it was... Like, when you told me it was like a random generated Zelda game, I was hyped for that. And I put the game on, I was like, the music was just kind of like Babby's first EDM or something. I don't know what to make of it. And it drove me bonkers. So for a while, I played it twice, and it's like, I don't feel like playing this game. I'm going to turn it off. I don't want it. And I went back to it on the third time, and I got more hooked on it because I was like, okay, for the sake of the review, I should at least try to play the game, ignore the aesthetic choices, play the game as it is and see what you think of it. And I did enjoy what I was playing of the game. There was a pretty poor design because I think in the way that before I even go on to actually explain the game is essentially a randomly generated Zelda game. You put in a random seed in the form of a 6-letter or number word or sequence, and it generates the planet that you're exploring. Think of it like a Zelda game as far as like the map goes. There's caves on the map. You can burn bushes to find secret stairwells. There's a boomerang in the form of a magical top hat. All kinds of interesting things. And it includes, like, I guess I'm going to guess there's probably 8 dungeons total, but there's dungeons with bosses in them. They give you dungeon items when you beat them. All that good stuff. Very dumb, very Zelda-esque. But the way the hero swings his sword, in a Zelda game, Link can kind of swing it at an arc, or he can sometimes stab with it. In this game, he has the arc, but the arc is really hard to gauge on sometimes as far as like trying to connect with an enemy while not getting yourself beaten to crap. Like, I think you said you played some of this too. Did you have that problem?
It seemed like in bigger groups of enemies, I would feel like I'm hitting all of them, but it would only seem to be the ones in front of me. It felt like the arc didn't hit everything in the arc. It felt more like directly in front of you.
Yeah, the vibe I got was that it felt too much like how, I guess a good example, like how Ys III did back in the day, where the character's sword had such a short actual reach away from the character that you felt like you were always in harm's way when you were just trying to attack a guy. Which I guess should be normal. I mean, you are fighting giant monsters with it's a nano sword. I'm not even going to downplay it. It's supposed to be like this great sword. So, you're attacking these guys with. You would think that if you're stabbing at a guy, or you're swinging at it, you kind of should feel safe if you're actually connecting. But it's like, shoot, I might be missing. I might be whiffing. He's going to be right on top of me. So it's kind of a bit of a rough spot there. But the game itself has a lot of charm to it. When I could read the dialogue, I did laugh at it. The main character is talking to like a flying robot, which I guess, like you mentioned earlier, is a code where it's not even a robot. But he's talking like a flying robot, and they're like commiserating on like the fact that they both crash land on this planet. And there's like occasional memory flashbacks of how he met the robot. And it's just weird stuff that happens. You even get occasional, abilities that let you interact with other rooms and stuff like this. I came across a meditation ability for one to let me open doors, certain types of doors. You can trip on cactuses for some reason, which allows you to see secret passageways. There's a lot of cool stuff going on in the game. It's just that, again, those 3 things I named, the way the sword swings, the way the graphics play out, and the music drove me bonkers. But I don't think they would just make the game a no-buy by any means. It's still a genuinely fun title to play.
Yeah, the fun thing is, you mentioned the graphics feeling really busy. He actually toned them down from earlier because people complained that they were, there was just too much going on, and maybe he needs to go back and handle it a little bit more, but I wasn't bothered too much by the visuals. I guess it's just a stylistic thing, and some people dig it, some people don't. Same with the music. I mean, it was all done by one dude.
Really?
Music and all. It was all just Nathaniel Weiss.
So he did the whole game by himself, too?
Yep. One-person studio.
Well, that's a pretty nice achievement.
Yeah, and we did bring up the text. I said during the interview, it's like text in some of the areas is very, very hard to read because the text will blend in with the background in some parts. Like there were some sections of the game where I absolutely could not read any of the text because it blended in with the background. And hopefully he's going to go back and address some of that stuff. I don't know if you could like put a black text black border around. I think he wanted to hold off on the full-on text blocks to keep it looking more organic.
Organic would be nice, but if you can't read it at all, what's the point?
I'm wondering, like, if he put a black outline around the words, if that would help.
That could possibly help because black outlines should stick out even if the screen's flashing or something. Though, of course, if you're in a dungeon area where the screen is black, because you come across areas like that too, and that might be a problem. But I mean, at that point, it just has to be a variable. It needs to be able to change based off of the environment you're in. But I feel like his simplest solution, just suck it up and put a little text bubble there. You know?
I could definitely agree with that point because I had issues with the text myself, but he might be working on it.
Yeah, but we can both agree that the music itself is more of a personal taste thing. I mean, some people play games that don't like music at all. They just turn the sound down. Mm-hmm. I mean, so that's a personal thing for me. I just hold music in a stupid high regard for when I play stuff. But
which you've brought up on the show before. So.
Oh yeah, man, it's a very important deal. Very important deal. So
overall, though, I thought the gameplay was solid, old school Zelda. The fact that if once you kind of get the grasp of the game, you could get through it in like 2-3 hours in a run and try different seeds and different combinations. See how the game changes. It's basically infinite replayability for the most part.
Yeah, see, I was worth asking since we both played separately. I'm wondering if the seeds generate different items too.
No.
So it's always the same stuff: the light orb, the top hat, the matter bombs, that kind of stuff.
Yep.
Okay. So what does basically change it?
It changes it's not that the game is randomly generated; it's procedurally generated.
Oh, okay.
And that there's, even though like things might be randomized playthrough to playthrough, there's still some parameters in place. Like this is more stuff we talked about during the interview. So again, go back and listen to that episode. But like if it was fully random, you could start the game and like the first dungeon could be in like the upper left-hand corner of the map, and you could die trying to get there because you're just not powerful enough to get through some areas. It's still, while areas of the game are somewhat randomized, they still try to keep things in a natural order so that the first dungeon will be somewhat close to you. You're not going to be able, there won't be any things that are stuck behind areas you can't get to because you don't have an item yet, but it's behind where you need to be.
That makes sense. Yeah, that would be stupid. It was like, you need matter bombs to get here, but I don't get matter bombs for the second dungeon. Why do I need them for the first? Because this is random, bitch.
But yeah, it seems like he put a lot of work into making sure that while it was procedurally generated, it was done in a fair way so that you wouldn't get like an unbeatable seed.
Okay. Well, I can appreciate that for sure. It makes me feel a little bit safer about what you're playing.
Yeah.
So in your case, what would you say? Is it a buy type or a try type?
For $19.99, I give it a recommended buy it, or a recommended try it. I'm sorry. I think if it were $15, it would be a guaranteed buy it. For $20, people might be on the fence with it. The fact that the visuals might be able to turn some people off, the music might turn some people off. There's a lot of stylistic choices there that hold it from being an outright buy it. But if you are into the old school Zelda games and you're looking for something like that gives you fresh gameplay every time you play it, I think it's worth checking out for sure. And if you're a fan, I know on Twitch, like randomizer tournaments are a big thing now. Where like
so they basically give a seed and everyone puts it in and figures it out.
Yeah, where people, they have randomized versions of like Dragon Quest and Legend of Zelda, A Link to the Past, Super Metroid, where everything is in random places. And, you know, that's become a big tournament style now of just randomizer tournaments. And this feels like that brought to a whole new game where every seed is a different playthrough. It's still the same game. It's just how you play it each time is going to be different. So
that has me seriously curious about someone's trying to find some of these Zelda seeds that you were talking about. A randomized Zelda playthrough.
Yeah.
That would be interesting.
Check it out on Twitch. I think it's like Speed Gaming on Twitch or Speed Gamer. They do randomizer tournaments all the time where it's like the items are always random and where they are.
So maybe it's the same logic they used when they constructed the Master Quest.
Maybe. They're like ROM hacks that people made up themselves.
Oh, okay, that makes sense then, because ROM hacks have been around since the dawn, almost the dawn of time, but for a while now. So I can see that being the case.
Yeah, but the tournament is based around people who never played that seed before. They get a random seed and they have to try and beat the game as quick as they can, not knowing where any of the items are.
That would be an interesting view. I can't imagine the tournament runs taking a short amount of time either.
Yeah. But yeah, I think Songbringer, definitely a recommended try it. I think it's a really solid game, but some of the aesthetic choices might turn people off. So, you know, some people just might not dig the visuals to it or might not dig the music like you didn't dig it. But what do you think for 20?
I'm possibly on the recommended try it also for those exact same reasons. I would say even look at some gameplay footage, because if the gameplay footage doesn't turn you off, then buy it. Because anything that I didn't like about the game could easily be discerned by like a YouTube clip. So, like if the art style and motion doesn't bother you, and the sound of the music doesn't bother you, and the way the guy swings his sword doesn't bother you, well then you got a hit on your hands. Because those are the only flaws I could find.
Sounds good. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. And again, go check out that interview. Go listen to it.
Get on it!
And the X-morph defense. We've had so many fucking good interviews on this show lately, and we're going to take a quick break, some music, and we're going to have another awesome interview with Jeff Quindlen of Black Lodge Games. We're going to talk about his game, a little bit about his game, Daath Origins. Going to talk a lot about the fact that he was so passionate about this game, and he wanted a collector's edition for his game, that he made his own collector's edition.
Did you ask him about if his name came from Twin Peaks?
No, I didn't, because I'm not a Twin Peaks fan. I'm sorry I let you down, Purnell.
You let me down, Blackheart. Damn. My brain.
So yeah, we're actually going to take a quick break and listen to one of his songs from the game Daath Origins, and then we're going to talk to him about Daath Origins and his collector's edition, and then we're going to play more music from Daath Origins. So stick around. Purnell, do you have any final words to end the reviews?
Nope, just if you like any rambling that I do or anything like that, and you like the fact that I have weird taste in music, check out Rhythm and Pixels Music Podcast, because I talk about music on there. So, but other than that, nope, that's about it. Just glad I'm doing reviews and looking forward to doing others.
You whore.
That's what I do.
Welcome back, everyone. Thanks for hanging around. I am joined right now from Black Lodge Games, Jeffrey Quindlen. Did I say it correctly?
Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you, Joe.
Sweet. How are you doing today, sir?
Outstanding. I can't complain. Never been better. How are you?
Well, I'm awake. I have cats surrounding me, so it's another wonderful day in SML land.
Sounds good.
So do you prefer Jeff or Jeffrey?
Jeff. Definitely.
Cool. So, Jeff, how are you doing today? How's things going?
Oh, not too bad. I woke up at 5 a.m., started getting my work day in order. I have a day job during the week, so weekends, I'm kid-free during the weekends, and I devote that solely towards just catching up, putting hopefully 18 to 20 hours in the weekend into game development.
And speaking of game development, you're here to talk about one of your games that is releasing very shortly called Daath Origins. For those who don't know what this game is, give us the sales pitch.
Yeah, absolutely. So you take command of an interstellar starship and you guide her through the multiverse, all while managing a crew of over 1,000,000 crew members. And essentially, you know, I love getting. I've heard you ask this question before, and I had something prepared, and it's just always that choking inclination when asked for that elevator pitch or that sales pitch, because I really feel almost disingenuous when I'm trying to sell my game, because it's really just a labor of love. So let me just cut the marketing crap I was about to spew there, and just
cut the bullshit. Let's hear.
Right. This is a role-playing game. It's in the classical style, so like Final Fantasy VI or below. You know, it's got that top-down, sprite-based perspective. And basically, the dynamic is that you're a captain of a starship. You've got a huge galaxy to explore. And essentially, bad stuff happens, and galaxies get destroyed, and you get sent through the multiverse and different iterations of the galaxies, different iterations of the universe, and so the villains that have propagated this disaster that's destroyed whole galaxies, you know, they exist in basically an infinite number of dimensions, and so they represent a pretty tough villain in that sense because they're pretty much infinite. I don't know. It's hard for me to boil this down, but that's probably the most straightforward I can get.
Which is, I think it's straightforward enough. But the gist is it's a space RPG, and you've been working your ass off on this game for quite a while, haven't you?
Yeah, I started this one in, I believe, the end of 2013, beginning of 2014. And I spent a good 6 months just trying to lay the seeds of this game, doing planning, trying to figure out the exact scope. And so by mid-2014, I was into full production on this title. And and I really wrapped it up this summer. Probably about June was when I was putting the finishing touches on the game. And since then, it's really just been bug testing, beta testing, fixing small things here and there, and then trying to add in some of the features that I cut. Because at the end of the day, I made the game that I could make and not necessarily the full game that I wanted to make. And that's just because I'm a one-person team with a limited budget.
So one man made this entire game.
Yeah. But I always feel weird saying that because my credits, the credits to this game, it's like 4 minutes long. There's tons of people. There's coders that I built my game on off of their work. Of course, all the licenses, you know, it's all legal. It's not like I stole their work or something. It's open. Yeah, it's open source stuff, or it's, you know, code that I've specifically contacted the authors and asked if I could use it in the game, and so really, I would say that there's hundreds of people literally that had some contribution towards making this game possible. But at the end of the day, I did the story, I did the programming, I did all the art, I did all the music, all the sound. So that's why I do present it as a game made by one person. But I have a person doing PR for me. I've had some other contractors do various tasks for me. So there is other people involved, absolutely, but at the end of the day, the game was developed by one person.
Well, you mentioned the PR guy, and I did want to bring up Sean from Higher Eclectic Ground, who got in touch with me. This is the first time I heard of the game. He emailed me, and I'm sure he knows that I'm a fan of collector's editions. And while in all honesty, the game itself isn't something I would probably normally play, mainly because I avoid PC gaming whenever I can.
Sure.
The big thing that turned me on to wanting to talk to you is the fact that you have a collector's edition for this game.
I do.
And you made the entire thing yourself.
I did. Yeah, so what I did is I was working a day job, and I decided I was going to set aside about 40% of my income from the day job, and I was just going to start filling up funds for the business, and particularly for this game. And so I was thinking, like, well, I'm a game collector personally. I like to get physical editions. I like boxed. I want complete in box, sealed if possible. I mean, I like that stuff. And so when I was trying to think of how my game could stand out from all the other games coming out, I figured that a collector's edition would be something that would fulfill a dream of mine, which is to ship a boxed game. And it would also present a unique marketing point, something that I could talk about, promote, that would maybe get me a little more attention, maybe separate me from the crowd a little bit. And at the same time, it also gave me an excuse to buy a 3D printer for the business. And I used that to create I created a starship for each of the collector's editions that is the starship that you play as in the game. And in addition to that, I included a map, manual, the game on DVD, which, of course, that hasn't been burned because the game is not quite out of beta at this point. And I don't want to burn that. I don't want to finalize those discs until the game is finalized, which just makes sense, right?
Yeah.
And then it's got the soundtrack, which is 31 songs that I've wrote and recorded. And let's see, what else? Is there anything else? I don't know. I shrink wrapped all the stuff. Tons and tons of manual labor. But it's stuff that I had done before. I'd worked for Sony when I was a teenager, doing line assembly for DVDs. And so I've got experience.
I'm curious to know, you've spent years working on this game. It's finally getting ready to, I could unveil this soon. Maybe, within the coming months, coming year, this game is going to be ready to show off. I'm going to have a lot of work to do with this game. How can I give myself significantly more work to get this game out? Like, what made you want to do a collector's edition for the game? What just triggered that in your brain that you wanted to do that?
Well, see, I'm following a business plan, and it's a business plan that I wrote in 2013. It's been modified each year as factors change. But part of that is that my long-term strategy is to be a publisher for third parties, find other RPG developers. And I'm talking like 5-10 years in the future. This is what I want to be doing, is publishing. And so in order to get from where I'm at now, point A, where I'm just a nobody that's, doing his thing, whatever, to somebody that can approach other developers and say, hey, that's a good project and I'd like to help you publish it. I have to build street credibility. I have to prove myself as a publisher, as a developer. Well, not really as a developer. The publisher, that's a different thing. But the point that I'm trying to get at is that there's a long-term business plan, long-term goals with Black Lodge Games LLC, and this first game is really just the seed of me trying to follow the business plan and get to the point where I've built enough trust with other developers to become their publisher. And the collector's edition specifically, like I said, I'm a collector myself. I don't have enough cash to really get all the gems that I want to have in my collection, but I thought about a lot of different ways to make a physical edition, and that was important to me. I want all my games to have a physical edition in some format. The reason why this became a collector's edition is because there's only 100 that I've created, so it's very limited, and it's such a low key, it doesn't have a lot of visibility. And since I do plan on releasing multiple games, I've got a game lined up for next year as well. I intend to make physical releases for each game, and if any of them get successful down the road, let's say this game just totally tanks and it just flies under the radar, okay? Let's say it's game number 4 from Black Lodge Games that finally is successful and is on the radar. Well, all of a sudden, that physical edition from that first game is would then be way more valuable. And when I was thinking about who would buy a physical edition from a no-name indie, it's like, oh man, like, right? It's going to be people that I would call collectors. And that's why I went with collector's edition instead of special edition or physical edition. There's a lot of things I could have named it, but I went with collector's edition because I'm actually aiming this at collectors.
I just looked at my shelf behind me. I think I have 10 physical PC games right now. Just because, like I mentioned, I'm not much of a PC gamer. My computer is horseshit. It works horribly. It's a miracle that I could get this show up every week. But when I first saw the video that you had on YouTube of you making these collector's editions, printing out, all the packaging, the figurines yourself, I immediately went to the website to see if I could buy it. Because just your dedication to wanting your game to have a collector's edition is not only what got me interested in the game, it's what made me know I needed to have you on my show to talk to you. And I'm very interested to see the reception to this game and this collector's edition, and I want to know when it goes on sale because I want one of these fucking things to have and have on my shelf.
I'll make sure you get one. You got yourself one, Joe.
Sounds good. It is just such an awesome idea that, with console games, you kind of have to either be a big AAA publisher who's going to put the time and resources into creating a collector's edition, usually something that's way too expensive with way too much junk that nobody cares about, or you're going to work with someone like Limited Run Games or Indie Box and get a smaller collector's edition with maybe a soundtrack, a trinket, stuff like that. And instead of going with one of those routes of partnering up with someone, you just did it yourself. And that is awesome.
Yeah. When I was doing the planning phase for this, Indie Box and what was the other one you mentioned?
Limited Run Games? Limited
Run Games, yeah. And I keep hearing those names quite a bit. But they weren't really quite as big, or I hadn't really heard of them even at that time. I heard of Indie Box, but Limited Run Games was not even on my radar at that time period. Because I definitely planned this out way before I executed it. And, if things were a little bit different, I may have actually looked at a third-party service like that. Because at the end of the day, I was really concerned about making sure I had a physical edition. And, if one of those third parties would have been easier for me, I might have gone with it. It just wasn't even an option. It wasn't on my radar.
Yeah. Well, I know Indie Box is primarily PC stuff. I think even I Am 8-Bit has been doing some collector edition stuff. East Asia Soft has done a handful of them through Play Asia. I know Limited Run Games, they seem to be more focused on like PlayStation, PS4, and Vita games, which leads me to another question I usually get to when we talk about PC games. Is there a plan for this coming to console at all?
Maybe. That's the real answer. Really, it depends. Basically, the game is one of the ways I wanted this game to stick out was that it's made on RPG Maker XP, which is a notoriously bad engine. Let's just face it; it's a bad engine. And so, I had done the work on this game initially with the intent of it just being a tech demo for myself, and then as I started exploring the capabilities of RPG Maker XP, I fell in love with it, and I realized that, hey, this engine gets a lot of bad rap. Like, it's better than what people give it credit for. And I think a lot of it was that the art style that ships with the game is overused. So RPG Maker XP games generally all look the same. So the problem with RPG Maker XP is that it's Windows only. And, well, that's one of the problems. Some of the other problems is that it only uses a single CPU core. It doesn't use a graphics processor at all. It doesn't use your graphics card. And, yeah, and so, I mean, obviously it does because it draws to your screen, but it doesn't use any acceleration. And so you can have a Titan XP in your computer, and it's not going to run any better than integrated graphics. And so the point of me saying all that is because the developers of To the Moon, which is another game that was on RPG Maker XP, they made an open source implementation of RPG Maker XP called MKXP, and that actually uses the graphics processor. It also enables cross-platform compatibility, so the game could then come to Linux. It could also come to Mac OS X or Mac OS. And in addition to that, that opens the door to PlayStation 4, Xbox One, Nintendo Switch. So, with that said, there are still several things with that open source version of RPG Maker XP that my game has like 75 cutscenes or something in it, and the open source version of RPG Maker XP doesn't support video playback. But it's open source and it's C++. So I've been stuck in RPG Maker land coding in Ruby, which is just terrible. And to have the capability now to extend it with C++ is just like taking off the reins, taking off the leash, and giving me full reign of the PC hardware, because one of the problems with using RPG Maker XP is just it's so old. It's a program from like 2004.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, it's ancient. And so porting the game to MKXP is just gonna increase the performance of the game. It's gonna increase the compatibility of the game, and then, like you're asking, it's gonna open up the door to possible ports to console.
Now, is that something that you're in the process of doing now, is converting it over to that other engine, or is that something that you're looking at doing after the game launches?
So right now I'm looking at having the game enter early access on September 15th. And during the early access period is my intended time period to transition from XP to MKXP. And I've already started the process, and I can get the game to at least technically run, but since there are videos from the very beginning, like when you first start the game, it'll come up and say Black Lodge Games, and it'll give you a loading screen, and those two things use video technology, and so since those aren't present in the MKXP, you just get a black screen right now. But I do have the game technically, because before that, like if you just take the code from Daath Origins and you put it into MKXP, you just get tons of errors, tons of dialog boxes popping up telling you that there's a problem on this script line, etc. And so I've already done the work to remove all the script incompatibilities. Now I've got to do the work of taking MKXP and adding in support for OGG and WebM video. And so once that's done, which could take months, honestly, once that's done, I'll definitely move the game out of early access, barring any other undiscovered issues. Because really, moving into early access here, the game is done. Like, the features are done, the plot's done, the action is done, all the quests, everything's done. What's not done is stability. Like, I need to figure out, if there are issues that I'm not aware of. There are a few issues that I am aware of, but they don't happen on everybody's system. They happen on just one computer over here, or, one computer over there. And it's really hard to debug stuff like that, especially when I've got, 5 beta testers. That's not enough.
Yeah.
So early access, I feel early access is a good way for me to increase that beta pool. And, but at the same time, I'm trying to be really open with the fact that, hey, the issues, the reasons why this is an early access is because of stability, and that's exactly what I have on the store page.
Yeah, I know a lot of people treat early access of just the way it's like, hey, we're going to give you half of a game, and then in a couple of months we're going to jack the price up and then say it's complete and then add like a level.
Yeah,
and you're legitimately using it to as more of like an open alpha so that people can play test the game and give you actual feedback that you're going to use in the development of the game. Hell, even in the past 12 hours, I sent you feedback with a controller issue with my Xbox One controller wasn't being supported, and the PS4 controller had messed up button prompts, and that was fixed overnight. So that's how quick you are and how on the ball you are getting things working and running properly.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I want to do with early access is just hear the feedback. If there's issues that I didn't foresee or didn't hear about through another source or avenue, then anytime I get feedback, as long as it's actionable, as long as it's something I can actually sit down and address, then I'm going to do it. And I'm going to do it for years. Like, when you make a game, like, it's a creative work, but it's a living work, and especially in this day and age where there's updates and stuff like that. At the same time, with a physical edition, I don't want to burn that physical edition until I'm confident that the game that I'm burning is done. Like, it's relatively bug free and is a complete experience. And with early access, I've been burnt in the past purchasing early access games, and I just don't do it anymore. And I really wanted to avoid early access if possible, but I feel like it's really the right place for this game at this point so that it can get the feedback that it needs to be the best game that it can be.
Totally understandable. I mean, if you're just a one-man team, you need more eyes on the game to figure out what needs to be worked on, what's working right, what isn't working right, and you can't do that by yourself.
No, you really can't. You could try to, and I did, and I failed.
There's millions of computer configurations out there, and you're clearly not going to be able to test them all by yourself.
No, and I have a lot of computers. More accurately, my company has a lot of computers, so I do try to replicate different environments, different systems. But like you said, there's millions of combinations of graphics cards and CPUs and operating systems and DirectX versions and all the craziness. I mean, you can't predict all of those configurations. You never can.
Have you considered maybe starting with the console, given that there's one configuration for consoles?
Well, I do have some console dev kits. I have definitely dipped my toes into console development. I do enjoy it, and I do appreciate the fact that you have one hardware target. But now you kind of have two on both the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4 with the PlayStation Pro and the Xbox One X. Which is kind of intriguing, but it's still a lot easier than millions of configurations. You went from 1 to 2, so yeah, I do have some console stuff in the works. Got a game, like I said, that it's coming out next year. Hopefully, probably be delayed realistically with the. I'm just being real. But yeah, that game is called Arcane Akira, and it's in development for PlayStation 4 and for Steam. And it's already been greenlit. It's a project that I started about a year after I started this project, the Daath Origins games that we're talking about today. And I am much more confident in that game selling itself than this game. Plus, I feel like this game here, being my first game, is more likely to fly under the radar just because it's a first game. So, you know, having a second game on the horizon that I'm confident in, I feel really good having this first game as a warm-up, basically, which doesn't sound good to a consumer, like, oh, he's just warming up with this game. But that's realistically my business plan, is to progressively build, you know, bigger, more complicated and better experiences. But as a one-person team, it really depends on finding efficient workflows, cutting out bullshit that's a waste of time, and really figuring out, you know, how to get from where I am today to where I need to be to ship the finished game. and those are definitely difficult when you're one person and you're shipping giant games.
Yeah, I mean, it's like Naughty Dog didn't start off with Uncharted.
No.
They have their fair share of embarrassing early games that that are just hanging out in their game catalog.
Yeah, and personally, like, I don't want to be a solo developer forever. In fact, I come from a background where I've been employed professionally as a programmer in a large team, and I've actually run a few teams of programmers before in development environments, and I love delegation. I love working with teams, but it's really important for me with these first two games. I'm really just trying to establish what I can do, what I bring to the table. I don't consider myself an artist, so I consider all the art in this game to be programmer art, which I have gotten a few compliments on the art in the game, and that always blows me away because I'm like, man, I'm a musician, I'm a programmer, and that's about it.
Yeah, thinking of the consoles, I will say when I was playing Daath Origins, like the first thing that came to mind was this would be awesome on the Switch.
Oh God, I would love to get it on the Switch. That would be amazing.
Have you sent any feelers out to Nintendo about trying to get involved in developing on there?
Oh yeah, I've definitely talked to Nintendo a few times, and honestly, I loved the Wii U. I'm so sad about how that whole console situation played out. But I'm on board with Nintendo, and I don't have I'm not currently developing for the Switch at this point, but it's just a matter of time.
That sounds good. I think Daath Origins, it's just the fact that it's kind of based on the whole 16-bit RPG style of gameplay, it just seems to be at home on a Nintendo platform. And then I'll admit, you said Arcana Kira?
Yeah.
You're working on that for PS4. I'm kind of sad. I wish you said Xbox, but
Well, here's the thing. Black Lodge Games LLC, my company, the company is a member of the Microsoft BizSpark program since 2015, and basically what that is Microsoft gives my company $150 a month in Azure credits. That's actually where I host the site, and it's really nice to have the website basically hosted for free for 3 years. And they also give the company full access to their MSDN library, which includes all the operating systems, all their Office programs, all their productivity stuff. So basically, the company has been floating on Microsoft's good grace for the last couple years. I operate the company with a really low bleed or whatever. I try to make sure that the company's breaking even every month or just barely losing money, since we don't have a product out for sale at this point. And Microsoft has really made this all possible. So I have love for Microsoft, and thus that does extend to the Microsoft platform. So I'm a part of their program. The company's a part of their program, but I just haven't announced the Xbox version yet because I'm trying to possibly work some type of deal out. So we'll see how that works.
Looking to score maybe a publishing or an exclusivity deal somewhere.
Well, yeah, I'd like to. So far I've been really bootstrapped about everything, and just trying to do everything myself, and trying to not really. I don't know. But yeah. I guess what I am trying to say is that I am trying to reach out, and hopefully, I think this next game, Arcana Kira, is, especially with the work that I haven't shown off, the stuff that I have been working on lately on it, I think will sell itself, especially with the visuals and the audio stuff that's been going on the last couple months. And even I don't care about exclusivities. In fact, I think they're bad for consumers. So if anything, I'd like, I'd like to have it on as many platforms as possible. But at the end of the day, if there's a compelling business reason or something, like if the opportunity is too damn good for me to pass up, I would certainly consider an exclusive this young in my career. But further down the line, I would try to avoid that altogether. I don't know. Exclusivities, like I said, I don't think it's good for consumers, and it oftentimes seems to, I think, harm the game itself. Like Rise of the Tomb Raider, it wasn't like a timed exclusive, and didn't it suffer pretty badly in sales because of it?
I think pretty much many of the big games have been starting to suffer, because even when it hit PlayStation, it didn't do crazy numbers.
Right.
It just, I've been very outspoken recently with exclusivity on this show, because it seems every new big Japanese game coming out is PS4 and Steam, PS4, right. PS4 and Steam. And there's never any talk of a Switch version. There's never any talk of an Xbox version. And we don't hide the fact that we're Xbox fans on this show. We love our Xboxes. I personally hate the DualShock controller in every possible way. I think it's one of the worst controller designs that has ever been made, and I hate having to use it. I would much rather use my Xbox Elite controller, which is amazing in every way. But even when games come out and it's like, oh, we're coming to Xbox One, it's like, will it be on other platforms? Right. Yeah, we'll get, like, I can understand the need for like a timed exclusive of like, yeah, we're going to be on here for a month before other platforms, or 3 months for another platforms. I think Sony's exclusivity contracts are excessively long and damaging to developers.
Yeah, you won't hear me disagree with that. I totally agree.
Yeah, because if they pay you X amount of money to keep the game on their system for a year and nowhere else, and your game doesn't do well on that platform, because let's face it, the PS4 marketplace at this point is way too flooded.
It is. It's like Steam.
There's way too many games on the PS4, a lot of subpar games on the PS4, and any kind of good stuff kind of just gets buried. I also think that their storefront doesn't do it any favors because of how convoluted it is to find things on there. Half the options when you first load up the store are ads for, you know, check out Totino Pizza Roll. Why? I want to look at the new games. Like, even when you go on the website and you click new games, new this week, the top of the page still shows a bunch of pre-orders. Like, no, I want to see what's new this week. And it feels so hard to actually find that kind of information on a PS4 store, where an Xbox, you go to new games, and they're just right there. These are the newest things in the order of they came out. Pre-orders have their own separate section that you could go through. I don't think PlayStation gives their exclusives the support that they deserve a lot of the time, and it ends up hurting the developers. And because they signed a year-long contract, they're kind of fucked, and there's nothing they can do.
Yeah, that's true.
Where on the flip side, I know Microsoft still has their exclusives, and even at E3, they're like console launch exclusive. But look at a game like Inside, where for the longest time that was touted as an Xbox exclusive. It was out on PlayStation not even a month later.
Yeah, I really like what Microsoft's been doing with the Xbox cross-compatibility stuff, and releasing on Windows 10 at the same time for their first-party stuff. And yeah, I mean, I can't disagree with anything you just said there. I totally agree.
I wish that more people felt that way. It feels like even Phil Spencer kind of has that idea of like, games are better when everyone can play them.
Right.
Like, what's the point in being like, haha, we get to play this game and you can't? Well, then there's a massive chunk of people who are never going to play that game because they chose a wrong console. That's kind of shitty for the consumer. But yeah, a lot of people get on Phil Spencer's case of Microsoft needs more first-party output, and I fully agree with that. They really need to get their first-party studios in order. And then people say, well, what do you think about first-party exclusives? Yeah, well, they're fucking first-party. They're supposed to be exclusive. That's the exclusives that you need on a console. First-party. I think third-party exclusives need to stop. That's just my thoughts. But
no, I see where you're coming from, especially as I'm first and foremost a game consumer, and so many things in the industry just piss me off to no end. The industry itself has just gone astray, and I feel, really concerned with the direction. There's just so much anti-consumer behavior that I feel, I'm getting old as part of it, and so I'm sitting on my lawn and I'm like,
God damn kids,
right?
So what pisses you off in the industry? We're just going to vent mode right now. What pisses you off in the industry?
Oh my God, dude, so much. Okay, microtransactions that in premium games, like keep it all right. If you keep it cosmetic, I'm more open to it. But the more and more you add gameplay elements that are tied to microtransactions, especially if there's a loot box and you're going to throw gambling into the mix too, like, oh my God, like what the hell are people? Oh, okay, all right, let me calm down for a second. DRM. There's another thing. It doesn't work. What's the damn point? Like, you throw this DRM on your game, you piss off all your legitimate customers, and then the pirates still pirate your damn game. Like, you're wasting your time, you're losing customer goodwill, and at the end of the day, the people that buy the games are getting punished. What else? There's
what was it? Denuvo was supposed to be the one that was like super hard to crack, and I think Sonic Mania was cracked in 8 days.
Right.
What was the point?
I don't know, because so much ill will was gained by Sega during that, and it sucks because that's such a good game and it had such positive momentum going into the PC launch that, and honestly, if they would have just even disclosed that DRM was going to be on Sonic Mania, but they didn't even do that, so it was a surprise to all these people that pre-ordered, and then of course the whole debacle with the like when you pre-ordered, you got the Sonic 2 or whatever it was, so you couldn't get a refund. Like, just so many bad choices.
I didn't know about that, about the PC version, that you got Sonic 2 with it.
Yeah, and so what it did is, because Steam's got that 2-week refund policy, and so if you pre-ordered too far in the past, you got a digital delivery of a game when you pre-ordered Sonic Mania, and so that was the beginning of your 2-week clock for your refund. And so by the time the game actually launched on Steam, a lot of people couldn't get a refund because their 2 weeks had expired because they were delivered Sonic 2, I believe it was, the day that they pre-ordered Sonic Mania.
That is terrible. Dickish. Oh my God.
Right?
Yeah, I don't know. I think on PC, pirates are going to pirate no matter what you do. It might take them a couple extra days, but they will pirate your game. And if you make it harder to pirate, that'll make them want to pirate it even more.
Yeah.
Because then it's a challenge.
You got to embrace the pirates, I feel. Like the developers and publishers that either just don't pay them any attention, or they will put in like an Easter egg to mess it up for a pirate's certain part in the game or something, Or there's been developers who've actually just straight up been like, hey, my game is banned from Australia, so if you're in Australia, here's a link to the torrent. Like, I think that's a healthier way to engage pirates. And Microsoft, even with Windows, has a couple years ago came out and were like, we'd rather you pirate Windows than not use Windows at all. And that's kind of how I feel with games. Like, if you're not going to play my game at all, or versus pirating the game, I'd rather you pirate my game than not play it at all.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen a number of developers just straight up go to the Pirate Bay, upload their game, say like, hey, we're the developers of this game. We realize not everyone has the money or they're on the fence with this. All we ask is if you enjoy the game, consider buying it or tell a friend to buy it. And
I think that
people buy the game out of it. Like, they'll download it, they'll try it and be like, hey, this is a cool game. These guys were awesome enough to let us try it instead of, throwing some anti-consumer DRM on there to fuck everybody. Let's support them and what they did. And I think it's cool to do because they're going to do it regardless of what steps you take to prevent pirating and how hard you try to stifle the pirates from cracking it. They're going to do it. It's a matter of time.
Definitely.
So if you're more open with consumers, I think a lot of people will be happy to repay that kindness.
I agree.
Clearly not everyone. There's still going to be the pirates who are like, yeah, free game.
Right, but they probably weren't going to buy it anyway, so no lost sale. Nothing was lost.
And then if you don't have DRM on the game, there's people who are against forms of DRM who are like, oh, they didn't do DRM, I'm going to buy their game.
Right.
And it just seems like the more you do to appease as many customers as you can, the more you realize that, hey, when you make people happy, they like reciprocating that happiness and doing things for you. So
yeah, it's amazing. That's how the world works, and a lot of times companies tend to forget that.
Yeah, don't be a dick and other people won't be a dick to you.
Right? So easy.
That's the lessons learned here on the SML podcast.
That's right.
I feel like
thing.
Go ahead. You go.
I was gonna say another thing that pisses me off, and I definitely wanted to mention it, is asset flippers. Like the developers, and I hesitate to even call them developers, but they'll take like something off the Unity asset store, and they'll just straight up repackage it, give it a different name, and upload it to Steam and start selling it. And but it's not just consumers that they're hurting there. They flood the market. It's not uncommon right now to hop onto Steam's upcoming list or whatever, and you see hundreds of games coming out, and you click on those damn games and they're not real. They're I've seen lists. I've seen the whole upcoming list be full of the same game renamed by the same developer, and it's an asset flip, and it's just flooding Steam and to a lesser degree the PlayStation 4 store with crap.
Yeah, there was a lot of crap that's been showing up everywhere. I've seen a couple really bad games on PlayStation. I know Xbox has had a few stinkers, but they've been like legitimate games that have just not clicked right and not done well. Steam, though, it's just what did they say? Like there's thousands of games a week now?
Yes, that's accurate.
How the fuck are you supposed to stand out in that?
Yeah, you're not really. I mean, you need to not rely on Steam. You need to be externally promoting elsewhere. Basically, at this point, Steam has too much noise to be discovered just through Steam. Like you need to be present somewhere else as a developer in order to, get noticed.
It's just game development has gotten so easy that literally anybody can do it in their bedroom at this point. And as cool as it is that pretty much anyone can make their own game, I don't think anyone should make their own game because, I don't know, learn first before you just shit out an asset flip game and expect it to sell 1 million copies and flood the market. I don't know. Too much of a good thing is possible.
Oh, absolutely. I do appreciate that the barrier of entry has been lowered so much. I think that's a good thing overall. But when you're talking a professional storefront like Steam or the PlayStation Store, those things, should be only providing products that are good fits for consumers. I mean, I feel like these asset flips are not good for consumers. I mean, they're just from the outside. You can look at these and you may think there's a complete game experience in there, and then if you are unfortunate enough to purchase one of these asset flips, if you're not following the industry, if you haven't heard the term asset flip, these things are, I think, a little more dangerous, a little more likely that you'd end up purchasing them. And I've seen some of the sales figures for some of these games that have been disclosed by these unscrupulous developers, which actually violates their terms. They're not supposed to do that. But these games are actually selling, and that's the thing that's surprising me the most. They're at least the ones I saw were breaking Steam's $1,000 threshold in order to recoup their $100 Steam Direct fee, and I believe that also should enable trading cards for those games. So it seems to me like Steam Direct has failed. It's not doing what it was supposed to do, unless what it was supposed to do was just make Valve a ton of money, in which case it's doing great.
Mission accomplished.
Mission, yep, definitely.
Now, I know there's probably a handful of games that are considered asset flips that have like a decent game behind it. So I'm sure not every asset flip is bad. It comes down to how much work you put into it to make the game stand out and be different from everything else.
Yeah.
So it's not just reusing assets that's going to make your game shitty. It's not putting effort into your game that's going to make your game shitty.
Oh, absolutely. And here's the thing. It's like, I don't think assets are inherently wrong. Like, for instance, if you needed a soda can in your video game, like, you could go into a 3D program and you could model out a soda can, but at the end of the day, it's going to look pretty similar to the soda can you buy off the asset store. Now, the difference is of course, there's going to be a texture on it. Now, if you make that texture your own, like, nobody's going to be able to look at that soda can and be like, oh, that's an asset if you've like retextured it. And if you do it from scratch, nobody's going to be able to tell the difference either. So in those cases, I understand, like, if you can spend $5 and get that soda can and save an hour's worth of work, then that's a net win. Like, you've saved money, you've saved time, and the quality of your product is not going to be affected either way. But it's when developers go in and they just purchase a bunch of assets, or they purchase a complete game as an asset and then they just rename that and sell it. That's when it gets really dirty, and I'm really frustrated with it as a developer. That's the kind of stuff that's eating up the noise. Like, it's making it much more difficult to make noise for what I would call a legitimate release, because I don't feel like asset flips are legitimate. No. You mentioned like an Xbox game or whatever that was a real game that wasn't necessarily that good, and I have so much more respect for a game that is flawed and maybe it just sucks. It totally sucks, but people actually worked on it. They tried to fix it. They tried to make it good. Like, it sucks if a game ships and it's a piece of crap. That sucks. But it's still way better than an asset flip. Even an asset flip like Unit Z, that is a totally good game that is fun to play. The problem is that it's an asset flip, and people, you can go on the Unity store and just straight up buy that asset and have that exact same game. That's terrible. I'd rather give money to the developer that made the shitty game that was a real game than give money to an asset flipper who purchased a really good game and then flipped it.
Yeah, and that's a big reason that we do reviews the way we do the reviews on the show, because even when we get bad games on the show, we try to focus on what's positive and try to like give our thoughts on how developers can improve the game, because clearly they put a lot of work, a lot of time into their game, and they want to see it succeed. They want it to be the best that it could be, but that won't always be the case. You might be too unfamiliar with the software that you're working with, or your ideas might not just be as good as you thought they could be. But if we were to just shit on you and discourage you and like, oh, why'd you even bother doing this? You won't learn. So if we give constructive feedback on this show, sure, we might still give your game a deny it, which we honestly, if you go back through our history, there's probably less than 20 games we've reviewed that we've given an outright deny it. Right. Usually it's like, well, wait for it to be cheaper, because I've reviewed decent games that I thought, hey, this would be a great $20 game. Oh, you're selling it for $50? Yeah, I can't in good conscience give this a buy it or a try it. So
that makes sense.
But I think in our history there was one game, and I'm trying to remember what it was. It was some PS4 game, like some kind of hack and slash, that it was like a straight up asset rip game, to the point where even the trailer stole music from Ori and the Blind Forest.
Oh, I vaguely recall that game. Yeah.
I can't remember the title, and I'm trying to figure out what the hell it was. I know it wasn't that Black Tiger one, because we never heard back on that. I saw that Life of the Black Tiger. I'm like, I need to know more about this game. I tried to cover on the show, and we never heard back. I guess that's a dodged a bullet there. But I think that was the only game that we just outright tore apart. And I felt justified in it because it was very clearly just, an asset flip game.
Right.
Stolen assets, because clearly a game releasing exclusively on the PS4 did not have permission to use music from a Microsoft exclusive title.
Oh, yeah.
Very clearly.
So did I hear you right? You tried to get the Black Tiger developers on?
Life of Black Tiger. I tried to review it. I don't think there's any way I would actually get an interview with them. I'd be like, what the fuck is wrong with you people?
Right?
What's up, everyone? This is the SML Podcast. My guests at this time are total dickbags who ripped off.
That game was entertaining, though, to watch.
Oh, man. God, I wish I could remember that other game. I know it's not even on the store anymore. I'm pretty sure Sony completely removed it from the store to the point where some random person messaged me on PlayStation 4. They're like, how can I get this game? I need to experience it for myself. No, you don't. Trust me. It was so bad.
Yeah, I do remember when that was all unfolding, but I can't remember the name of the game either.
Oh, man. It's like, as soon as I see the title of it, I'll be like, oh, yeah, that's what it is.
Right.
But
it's probably some listener right now that's like, oh, it's this, oh!
I'll get an email or a message online. It's like, you dumb asshole, this is what it was.
Right.
And they'd be right. I am pretty much a dumb asshole. So I do my best.
Hey, man, we're just human beings. I'm a dumb asshole, too. Just doing my best as well.
And that's why you're a good guest.
Oh, thank you.
A dumb asshole joining a dumb asshole on his dumb asshole podcast.
It's the perfect combo.
It really is. You're awesome to chat with. I gotta say, I'm very happy with this interview. And is there anything else that you wanted to talk about? I know we've been chatting for quite a while now. I feel bad that we kind of strayed away from the game.
No, I don't feel too bad about that. And yeah, I've enjoyed this interview too. It's been great. Yeah, I guess bringing it back to the game real quick, I'll just talk a little bit more about it and kind of what my intentions were with it. Basically, I'm super obsessed with role-playing games. Have been since Dragon Warrior. Got that game when I was a kid with a Nintendo Power subscription. Thank you, Mom. That was amazing. And I don't know. It not only did the first Dragon Quest game, it ignited that love for role-playing games, but it was also just, I was so young. It was like 88, 89, somewhere around there. It really made me want to get better with reading. It just inspired me altogether to, I don't know. And so it's been hugely impactful upon my life. And, growing up, I've always, since then, been interested in making role-playing games and have actively been doing so since I was a kid. And basically, at this point in my life, about the time when I hit 30, I was like, what am I doing with my life? What are my dreams? How many of those have I actually tried to pursue? And I realized I hadn't really gone after too many of those things that I wanted to accomplish. And so just being here right now, at the point where I've got this completed, pretty massive space role-playing game that's done. Like I all the hard work is behind me in the sense of development, of writing the story, of writing the characters, of creating the galaxy, the planets, and the multiverse. Like that was all a lot of work, and it's just so satisfying to be at the release process. So doing the promotion, doing the marketing, but also doing the bug fixing and the community building, the reaching out, talking with beta testers and stuff like that. This is where I want to be. And so even if the game tanks, it doesn't really matter to me because I've already achieved what I wanted out of it, which is to finish a role-playing game, to finish a complete, role-playing game with some depth to it. It's a 25, 30-hour experience. You can stretch it more or less. But I'm really just happy to be where I'm at, and honestly, if I just keep making games at this level and if I can just break even or make a small profit, I'll just keep doing this the rest of my life, because this is what I love to do. And so it's very fulfilling, very awesome to be here talking to you about my passion project, the stuff that I just naturally do and enjoy doing. And the fact that I might be able to get a paycheck, even if it's just enough to pay the bills or pay rent for a month or two, that's great, man. That's awesome. Like, so, yeah, I have a real hard time coming on here and just being like, go buy my game, go check it out. Here's this, here's that. Like, that's not me.
Well, now's the time of the show to do that. So where can we get the game? How much is it going to be? When's it on sale? Give us the details.
Yeah, sounds great. So if you want to get to the game, buy my fucking game. You can go to bit.ly/Daath Origins, and that'll lead you right to the Steam store page. And so that's, bit.ly, bit.ly/DAATHORIGINS. That's bit.ly.com/Daath Origins. And the game is $9.99, and that's during early access, and it's also after early access. It's just, that's the flat price. There will be a 10% discount during the first week of early access, and I will be trying to participate in those winter and summer sales, but that's about it for sales. And then the price is just pretty much going to be at that $9.99 for the time being, because looking at the market, looking at other indie RPGs, I mean, Undertale's $9.99. I can't price my game more than Undertale. I mean,
if only more people felt that way.
Right?
In my day, digital games started at $4.99, and now they start at $24.99. Goddamn kids. Oh, man. And what about the collector's edition? When can we buy the collector's edition? How much is it going to be? When can we get it?
Yeah, those are great questions. So with the collector's edition, the plan is once the game has left early access, meaning, I don't want to burn a disc if there's a known big bug that's going to ruin the gameplay experience, like because I can't patch the disc. Once that disc is burned, it's burned. And of course, you can still update the game. The game that's shipped on the disc will, it comes with a Steam code, so you'll get a Steam download as well, and you'll be able to keep the game up to date and patch and stuff like that. But it's just the principle of the matter. Like, I can't stand games that are shipped that don't actually have the game on the disc, and you just install the game off the internet. Like, what's the point? So I'm hoping, spring 2018, hopefully, to have enough confidence to say, like, all right, this is looking good. Let's finalize everything. Let's master these discs. But I will be making a lot of noise. I'll definitely be contacting you to get your address. I'm just going to send you one of these, no cost. And I also have another video that's in the production that shows the creation of the collector's edition in more detail. And when I release that, will be at the same time that I'm doing the game's post-mortem on Game of Sutra. And so I'll be making as much noise as possible at that time period about the physical edition, and we'll also be including a full cost analysis and breakdown of all the materials and a step-by-step, a bit better than that first video that you saw. Because I really want... Well, I upped the production gear that I had, because I was recording off like a cell phone camera or something really bad for that first video. So I went and I got a better camera and I got a better microphone, and and then I reshot some of this stuff because I'd already finished producing some of the things. So I had to like reproduce some of the parts that were no longer that I didn't need to do in order to have enough footage to show each section. But yeah, getting back to your question, I'm hoping in the beginning of next year, 2018. To be launching the physical edition, the collector's edition, along with like I said, that video and a full post-mortem that explains everything about the development of the physical edition, as well as the amount of money that the game made.
Have you considered doing any kind of pre-sales on the collector edition so that people could get like the map and the manual and the soundtrack and the figurine, and then at a later date ship out the finished game? That way people can just buy the collector edition, have the digital code for it, and when the full game is ready, they could have their hard copy instead of either waiting completely to buy the game or having to double dip by getting it on Steam first and then buying it again when the physical is ready.
Gosh, that's such a good point. I have considered it. One of the things I was thinking about was burning the early access version onto a separate disc that has a label, marking it as such, and then following up with a second shipment with the finalized disc. That wasn't a very practical idea, but it was something I had legitimately considered. But I like your idea better. It's more realistic. So yeah, that's definitely something to consider. I'll have to think about that. But it does make sense because nobody likes to double dip. And
or you could always do something where if somebody bought the early access release or just bought it digitally before the physical version, like if they email you with their receipt, they could get a $10 discount on the collector's edition, something like that maybe.
Yeah, that's also a really good way to handle it. Man, appreciate that, Joe.
Give an idea. I expect a special thanks in the credits now.
Right?
As a beta tester, I helped you with the controller issue. I'm the best.
You totally did. And I do appreciate that. That was awesome.
Well, no matter what you do with selling the game, I am very, very much looking forward to it. Like I said, I want to support the fact that you love special editions so much that you put it in your own hands and you made your own. And I very much look up to that and respect that. And I'm looking forward to the final game. And I'm even more looking forward to maybe eventually playing it on my Xbox One or on my Switch.
Yeah. I look forward to those possibilities as well, and I will be in contact with you about the finalized production of the collector's edition. And also, like I said, I got that other game coming out next year, so hopefully I'll be able to make a return to the podcast here at that time. And I did mention, I think before we started recording, I've got a podcast myself in the works. And it may be something that you might actually want to talk about here on SML, but it'll be a subject for an email or something. We'll talk about it.
Sounds good. I'm very much looking forward to it. You were fantastic on the show. You mentioned coming back. Please do. You were an absolute joy to chat with. Thanks to everyone for sticking with the show and listening to all the reviews from earlier and then this chit chat. We usually end the show with some music, so I got a quick question for you.
Sure.
Can we score a couple of songs from the soundtrack?
Absolutely. Feel free.
So, music from Daath Origins, I guess.
Oh, thank you.
So, do you have any final words to end the episode?
Yeah, I did give out one URL, but if you're curious to learn more about my company or my games, please check out blacklodgegames.com.
All right, moving on. Next game to talk about is called All. God damn it. Get that dick out of my mouth real quick.